We are gathered here today to speak about Nilfgaard in general, on Pro Ladder and Normal Ladder, its performance, possible decks, counters, how to play it, possible diversions of the decks, so the Nilfgaard Masterclass. And
Yay.
I believe we should start with the most popular offender of the ladder and Pro Ladder both, the Alchemy Nilfgaard. So I believe most of you guys already know what the Alchemy Nilfgaard is and how it plays in general, and its most notorious Viper Witches for 10 damage to ruin every engine you can think of. Alright, so let's begin. Okay, so I believe most of you know how this deck plays out, and the deck is mostly reactive. Like, the game plan is very basic. You just play units, then play Mahakam Ale with Vikovara Novice, sometimes Viper Witcher. At some point you pass, you slam golds for more points, blah blah blah, then silver cards for create something something, and at some point you just win. So the game plan is very reactive for the deck, and it's much better to talk about the certain matchups of the deck rather than the general play style. Also
Well, I
because
just want to go around the fact that Alchemy Nilfgaard is also creating yourself a better win condition than your opponent. So you both remove the win condition and like you transcend Yankarvit or something, so you can slam big points like 30, 40 carry at the end if you play carry, or like big trees or something.
alright, so let's talk about maybe Great Swords first as the matchup.
Yeah.
Alright, so Krahan Crate with the Great Swords. So many people believe that Alchemy is a very good deck to play against Krag, Great Swords I mean, and it's a very good opinion, mostly because most Great Swords players don't really know how to play against Alchemy, and you can simply use the fact to get freeloader against Great Swords. So, as you probably know about the matchup, it's just that... Okay.
I would say like it's positive matchup for Alchemy if it doesn't play bow, and if the opponent plays bow, like it becomes a negative matchup in my opinion, because like if you're playing against someone that knows how to play Greatsword, he's basically gonna play bow like as his first card, then crack into a Greatsword that's gonna be 11 on the next turn,
Yeah,
and you're not gonna be able to do anything.
Kara is referring to the Wild Boar of the Sea, if anyone didn't catch it. So basically it allows people to dodge Viper Witches by buffing their Great Swords out of the removal range instantly. So, assuming your opponent doesn't do that, you just want to keep removing Great Swords. Don't mind the ships at all, they don't really matter that much. You just have to make sure that the moment Great Swords hits the board, it dies instantly, so the opponent doesn't have time to play Mandrake or anything really. And in this matchup, you want to have as many Viper Witches as possible, and usually I recommend, so let's say you're playing the Great Sword matchup, you play something and they play Great Swords, you kill it instantly, they play it again, you kill it instantly. Let's say they play boat or something, you ignore the boat, just play Mahakam Ale, just let the round pass on, and you pretty much let the round go until you're unable to keep killing the Great Swords. And then, once you are unable to kill them, I recommend either using Mandrake on it instantly, so it goes to low points, or just let them play one more engine and one Greatsword, and then you pass. Once you run out of ways to keep them out of the round, you just pass, because there's nothing more to look in this round. They just get engine value, and you don't get the value because there are no engines in Alchemy. And then you can just pass and keep playing Viper Witches with Ointment in the next rounds.
What you can also do is cycle a Witcher with Vilgefortz if you have access to him. can be quite risky because he might give you watch or something. So the best case scenario is to play Carvid before that, so you can see what you have in the top of your deck. But yeah, Vigorforce can give you an extra Viper Witcher. But like, if you're on Whitecoin, in most cases, destroying Greatswords with your Witcher is gonna give you 15-ish tempo every chance, so you're gonna be like way ahead of him. And he's gonna have to play your 8s. Like, to play his engine, he has to play 8 Strength Bonds, 10 and 9 Strength Bonds. So he's gonna have to play 2 cards at least to catch up, and you're gonna play +2. And he's gonna have nothing really good in his graveyard. Because the most important in that matchup also is graveyard management. If you have a stronger graveyard than them, you win, basically.
Okay, and again, probably many people know that you can easily shut down their graveyard with Asaya. So, if the Greatsword player is really smart, they will actually try to two-round you, and you should ask yourself whether it's possible for your opponent to two-round you. And if you suspect that they will try to two-round you with round 2, then play your Asaya immediately and abandon the hope to just get their biggest greatsword back into the deck. Also keep in mind that it's possible for your opponent to get the greatsword back with Spear Maiden, because they can just res it and with restore or something. So keep that in mind.
Restore it, get insane tempo. I think the best thing to do if you can is to play Asaya on the first turn of round 3.
Yeah, that's the best case scenario. So
also, if you reach 1-2, they might got it on the Mulligan phase, and then you just screwed.
Okay, so does anyone have some questions about the matchup? You guys are free to ask questions all the time. You know.
What about Kai? Ask Isha. If you're in a good situation, he play Kavit and he can play any Greatsword, you can main Kavit because Kai is very common. But in most cases, you don't really care about it because you like. Oh no, wait. Sorry. I'm stupid. What about Kai? You don't really need to drill good Kai because if you destroy all his engine, he's not gonna have a good graveyard, so he's not gonna be really able to beat Kai. Yeah, Kai is still a thing. Kai is still played.
Okay, so it was a general question. Yeah, Kahir seems to be getting an increase in win rate recently. Honestly, the meta seems to be like there's a Kahir meta, then there's the meta when Kahir is terrible, then nobody plays Kahir, and then suddenly people play Kahir again. It mostly works like that when Kahir is popular, people will mandrake your leader to make your Kahir useless. But if nobody plays Kahir, then banishing your leader is usually a terrible play for them, so they won't do that, and then you can start playing Kahir again, and it goes back and forth. People play Kahir, people don't play Kahir, and it's just, you could call it the cycle of Kahir.
Yeah.
And okay, so the quick rundown of the matchup. You delete the greatswords for as long as you can. You get a massive point advantage in the process. You pass when you can't remove the greatswords anymore, or when they pass. Then you keep removing them again. You Asaya smartly in knowing that they might be able to get the greatsword back with Spear Maiden, and then you just win with value pretty much. Okay. Any questions about the matchups?
Do you consider the matchup favorable to Alchemy?
It is favorable in vast majority of scenarios when your opponent doesn't use Wild Boar of the Sea. It is a bad matchup if your opponent opens with Wild Boar and buffs his greatswords instantly. Actually,
yeah, I wanted to ask about that.
Okay, so if that happens, then I recommend either trying to kill the ships instead, or maybe also Mandrake the first greatsword that's getting buffed to 11, because there is one greatsword that is going to be starting with 10 points, and the rest will start with 8 points. But it's so usually we assume that your Viper Witches will do 10 damage. So if you Mandrake the Greatsword that will be on 11 after the Wild Boar of the Sea, then the next Greatswords will start at 9 points if they get buffed by the Wild Boar. So you then can keep on using Viper Witches, but they can respond with their own Mandrake, and it's just really a mess at that point. So you might also consider not ignoring Greatswords totally and just killing their light longships, because usually you're able to do that. But it's just becomes a really messy matchup at that point. Okay.
Isha asked if it's really worth to go for 11 Alchemy card, and I would say no, because you're gonna have way more bricked and way more issue with your Nilfgaard just to destroy like one part of one matchup.
Okay, but I mean there are variations of alchemy. We could talk about the variations later, but I think it's better to talk about the matchups first. Yeah. Okay. So that was the Greatswords matchup. Again, last time. Any questions for this particular matchup?
I have one question, or note. So if they are playing the version,
sorry, could you repeat, Santi?
If they are playing the version Recon and Fish, yeah, can you hear me properly? Sure.
Not really, like it's cutting.
Your voice is being cut constantly. I'm not sure why. I think you should go to your...
Is it better now?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so if they are running the version with Trish and Recon...
Yes.
Yeah. Is it sometimes more worth it to, in round 3 with Asshire, to rather put back Spear Maidens and Pirate Captains to pick their restore, instead of trying to put back the Great Swords if they can just recon them out of the deck anyway?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Basically, you have to be aware of your opponent possibly running Reiko and... okay, so you pretty much know that they run Reiko if you're lucky and find it with your... what is it called? Sorry.
Trace Steady.
Yeah, Trace Telekinesis. But also often crack decks that run Trace with Telekinesis run 26 cards. Not really sure why, but they often do that. And if they play 26 cards Greatswords, they usually play Trace Telekinesis, so you can be aware of that. And yeah, basically, when you suspect that your opponent might be able to get the Greatswords back after you put them into the deck with Asshire in round 3, then yeah, it's better to just resurrect back your Roach in the first order, and also to you could try to also resurrect the Pirate Captains to make them unable to restore them. That's a good idea. It also depends on the graveyard state, so I can't give you a finite answer to your question, because it also depends entirely on the graveyard state of both players. But yeah, if you know that they will Reiko, then you can just try to brick their Pirate Captains.
The thing I don't like also in that ID is if they have a captain in hand, they can like kill it with a bot, and then they enable the restore again. So you kind of waste your Asshire. So you have to be aware if they still have one captain in hand or not.
Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Okay, I assume there are no more questions about this matchup. Okay, so let's talk about Brewer next.
Oh yeah, Brewer.
Okay, so Brewer is a river of matchups because there are currently 3 matchups for Brewer. The most notorious one, obviously, is the Nova 26 cards variant, but there are also the Shoop variant and the Hunt Buff variant. At least from the decks that are popular on Pro Ladder.
I don't think we need to cover quickly. The Hunt Buff is not that popular, and it's a pretty easy matchup. Basically, what you want to do is to destroy the Fire Dragon, because this is the card that's gonna enable the entire deck, either the Farsi or the actual buff in hand. But otherwise, you don't really have that much to care in that matchup. It's not really a dangerous matchup for you.
Okay.
In contrary, like both Shoop and Nova is pretty tough to deal with as alchemy.
Okay, so pretty much when you play against Brewer, you have to first you have to make sure what deck you are playing against. And if you see 26 cards, then it's 99% the standard Nova variant. If it's 25 cards deck, then it's most likely a Handbuff variant or the Shub variant. Okay, so against the Nova variant, well, you have to be... It's really not easy to deny that match from Brewer when you're playing Alchemy. The main strength for playing Alchemy is being able to deny vast majority of engines, but Brewer doesn't really play any of them, so too bad for us.
Units, a lot of units, and you can't really do anything. You can try to destroy some elves, but you're gonna have 11 values, mostly.
Okay, so... Similarly to Brewer, Alchemy can put a lot of tempo, but the tempo isn't as, you could say... You can't guarantee pulling as much, exactly the same amount of tempo every time, because Brewer can always open with, let's say, what is it, Barclay into Cleaver. They can always open with that.
26, yeah.
Yeah, but Alchemy also can put a lot of tempo when they want to, but it's not always in your hand, and sometimes it's a little bit... There's some RNG involved in it, so yeah, but Alchemy is a deck that can pull a lot of tempo, so you should not allow your opponents to go 2 cards up on you with Barclay into Cleaver. That's the first point. Don't let them go win on equal or go 2 cards up on you, so that's the first point. And next, you have to be aware of the fact that Brewer doesn't have engines, but they scale with the length of the round because they play the officers into vanguards, and in a long round, if you go into a long round 3 against Brewer, then you very likely lost the game already.
Yeah.
So don't let them go into a long round 3, and also make sure to not make the round 1 too long. Okay, and you have to recognize when your opponent is just trying to keep the tempo in round 1 in such a way that it makes you unable to pass, because obviously you won't be able to pass on equal when your opponent is winning. And your opponent might be smart enough to just keep pushing just enough tempo to make the round 1 long enough for him to get the value with officers and vanguards. So you have to see when your opponent is trying to go for long round 1, and just counter this strategy with putting a tempo spike by your own, for example with Calvade, or using telekinesis. Or even the Vesemir or Vilgefortz. Basically, you have to recognize when you have to make the use of your goals to get ahead of your opponent. So you make sure that the rounds are not too long against Brewer, and then you have to remember that they sometimes might get an engine with the create effects, so always keep a Viper or 2 to counter the occasional engines they might get. And other than that, keep the most, always try to counter your opponent with gold spam in a not too long round 3. So you just try to pass smart, and that's pretty much it. Also, one more thing that I thought of. Vast majority of Calvade players try to brick the opponent with their Asaya. During round 2, you just play Asaya and put back Barclay. And you can also try to put back Cantarella. And Cantarella is a little bit risky to put back into the deck, because they might use officers on Cantarella and just get 18 points bronze out of a sudden. So keep that in mind when you put back Counterline to the deck, that they might use it against you. But
you can try to put Elven Mercenaries, see if they play other spells. Also,
yeah, it's also a good. You just have to see what is the state of the cards that your opponent already played, and then brick their deck accordingly. Also remember that you can just put back Roach into your deck when...
Yeah, and this is another point that is key in that matchup. He's building a better win condition than them. You can do that by playing Vezeme into Mandrake into Caveat, and like Slam with Kare or have a Great Vigor Force or something. Or if you play one farm into Joachim, you keep that for the last one, and like you do one farm into Joachim. You add on like a Novice Chain or something. And for that, you kind of need a Scion to watch to get the extra 4 that may give you the game in some cases.
Okay, one more thing that I remember. Sometimes the opponent might play Nova early during round 3. Never ever hit the Nova with your Viper Witches, because your opponent might be baiting you, so they can replay your Mandrake with Egglaze and just heal back the Nova. Sometimes people do that, and it can be devastating. So don't fall for that. And also consider just, if there is a very short round 3, also you could consider using your Vilgefortz to just burn Nova after they play it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to just look at what cards they played, and if you see that it's a short round 3, and they played most of their goals or something, then you might give them like a Vanguard with Vilgefortz that will just be like 8 points play, and then it will be a great Vilgefortz for you.
And just remember that Vilgefortz only gives your opponent bronzes, and since it's a super thing, decks sometimes they don't even have enough bronzes.
Mm-hmm.
So they can give them nothing, or a very bad thing, like you say, the Vanguard or something. That would be just 6, 7, 8 points.
Okay, so just keep that in mind in that matchup. But in general, it's not a great matchup. Usually you lose it. But you always have to try to get the most out of the worst. And still, it's the worst matchup, but it still has a 47% win rate, so you definitely can win it with the correct hand and coin flip. Okay. Okay, so that was the Nova matchup. Any questions regarding the Nova matchups, guys?
I have a general question for Marble. What are your opinion on Blue Dream? And I would say it's a bit too unreliable. It has statistically only a 50% win rate, which is not that good. It really depends on your opponent's deck, and not all matchups gonna give you a good thing. And the card have to be dead. So sometimes you just have a Blue Dream in your hand and there's nothing in your opponent's graveyard, so you kind of feels bad, man. So I wouldn't recommend it.
Sorry, I didn't understand. There was a question regarding what card?
Blue Dream.
Blue Dream. Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, sorry, I didn't understand the first time. Yeah, so I agree with you totally on the card.
And then they ask, isn't that matchup brutal on blue? And yes, I mean, the deck is like Brewer, it's called conflict abuse for a reason. When he's on red, you can't really do anything about it. Just gonna hurt.
Yeah, it can be okay on blue because you can just spam tempo, similarly to Brewer. That's the good side of Alchemy. For many decks, the blue against Brewer can be devastating, mostly because they are simply unable to get enough tempo to just overcome the opener with Barclays. But for Alchemy, it's not the case, so it's still winnable on blue.
Still winnable, but it's harder than red, because red you sometimes can pass at +1 when you recognize that your opponent's spamming Fs everywhere and it's gonna have crazy tempo just with it born. You can pass at -1, but on blue sometimes you are equal and you know you have to pass, but you can't, so it's gonna feel bad.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, any questions regarding the Nova matchup? Nothing? Alright, let's move on.
Oh, Century's Whiting.
Okay,
I
okay.
can actually, I can ask that. If you are running Kahir, if you are not running Kahir, this doesn't really make sense. But if you are running Kahir, isn't it better to not spy them back if they spy you on blue? If they spy you on red, you can spy back, of course. But if on blue, if they spy you, isn't it better to just go 2 down and like you accept the fact that you are going 1 card down to round 3, but you can set up your 11-point Calvit and Stefan something to the top of your deck and prepare for the round 3 with 1 card less.
Okay, but if you go 1... Okay, you mean when we are on blue, as Calvit, we just try-pass?
No. I mean, if you are on blue as Kavit and they spy us, we don't spy back and we just play. And if they we don't spy back immediately, actually.
Okay, so here's the thing. If you're on blue and they spy you and you don't respond, then you go automatically 2 cards down, and that's a fact unless they fuck up. Pretty much.
Yeah. That we go 2 cards down at that point, which means we will be 1 card down in the round 3. But I mean, what I'm saying is that if you are running Kahir, you can win the last round 1 card down. If you.
It's a very difficult because the Brewer can also respond by stacking their Eglays and the Nova, which is a very high tempo cards, both, especially Nova and Eglays, because you play Alchemy, so they will always have something good to pull with Eglays. For example, the Runestones. Even the Runestones are good. And then it can be very difficult if they just stack their goats to win 1 card down. Pretty much impossible. Even if you prepare your Calvate to be like 11 points. Even a Calvate, 11 points Calvate, into another gold is going to be like... Rarely is it going to be... it's going to be something between 20 and 30 points. Their Nova is 22, their Eglays is already over 20 easily. It's just not going to work most of the time.
You need more than 40, and that can give you... I think it can goes to like 35, even 40 in some crazy cases, but it's not going to be enough for sure.
Okay, so it's not going to work in most cases to just go 2 cuts down. Other questions? Okay, let's move on to the next Brewer matchup, the Shoop matchup. Do you want to talk about it, Kara, this time?
I think I've less experience than you on that because I didn't really face any Shoop. I think it's easier. You just have to know, like you have to... I think the easiest way to deal with that matchup is to try to win 1-1 as your best and making him use Shoop in 1-2.
Okay, so let's talk about the differences between the matchups. So the main difference of the matchups is that the Shoop deck doesn't really have much power, like long ground power compared to the Nova variant, where they get officers with Vanguards for massive amount of points. That's not the case for the Shoop variant. They still can put a lot of tempo. They also run the Barclay into Cleaver abuse, as people like to refer it, and will most often use it as opener. But if you get past that, and don't let them just win on equal or make you go 2 cards down, then you're more often than not good to go. And then you just have to be... you can go for very long round 1 because they only...
Yeah, they don't stack up tempo and you have better bonds than them. Because they have random bows. They don't have engines. They just have random bows that are going to put between 9, 12, 15-ish. So all of your bonds going to be better.
Yeah, at most, sometimes they even run some engines, and those engines just die instantly with your Viper Witches, so that's a really good case for you. And even if they don't run engines, they most often end up just slamming points for like 10, 12 or something, and you just win the long round at that point if you go past the initial Brewer abuse, as people like to name it. And then you prefer to win round 1, because if you don't, they might try to use Shoop in round 2 to get a card advantage on you, and then it can get a little bit tricky again. Especially.
So you shoot for the withers because they know we don't take any wither clay, so it's free wither for them. Or they can play Shoop in so many ways against us.
Yeah, obviously, but there are. I like to say that there are only really 2 ways to play Shoop that really count. You can either play Shoop for card advantage, or you can play Shoop for raw value, pretty much.
Yeah.
And well, the raw value approach, you can do it in like 10 ways, because that's how the Shoop is designed. There's like 10 ways to play the 24-25 version of Shoop, and there's that one variant that gives you card advantage. So, if they win round 1 cut down, because that's usually what happens, if they win at all round 1, and they haven't played Spied yet, then if they play Spy and get card advantage with Shoop, we are in a big trouble, so keep that in mind. So you can let them win round 1 if they already used Spy, and then you might go round 3 on equal, but the Shoop deck usually doesn't have big finishers if they already used Shoop, compared to the Nova variant, and then you can win on equal rather easily if you lined up your Calvin and such.
Yeah, especially if you have Thorn covered, and like another gold choice is very good here as a finisher. You can even play stuff like Vigorforce or anything you have.
Yeah, and if they use Shoop as finisher, then you just have to again line up your golds enough for the round 3 when they use the Shoop.
Also,
So you win anyway.
Because you can get, like as we said, you can give him a Brewer again. A Kanchabala is less risky even to give him back, and you can get Watch resurrected again.
Yeah, they usually don't use officers in the deck, from what I remember.
They're gonna have only one, so it's less risky, I'd say.
Yeah, and even then, I don't think they often use the officers, because they only want the 1 War Dancer, and you don't really want to use officer with War Dancer. And I don't think they use Vanguards at all, so well, that depends on the variants, but that's the general idea still. And okay, and overall this matchup is just easier than the Nova variant, in my opinion. Okay, so any questions regarding the Shoop variant of the Brewer deck?
It's less popular on normal way than Pro Ladder, I'd say. So I think people face it less.
Yeah, but it's still worth discussing, I believe.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and the last variant is the Houndbuff variant. It's a very easy matchup for Alchemy, because they have the same strategy as Alchemy, which is denying your opponent's strategy. But the problem is they can't really deny our strategy, because our strategy doesn't really have any engines or anything. So, and they play what are they called? Dryhead Dragoons themselves.
The dragons are key, because they're gonna like take the forces and give buffs.
Okay, so you just
the main focus. You just kill them and easy.
Yeah, you just kill dragoons, and then it should be an easy matchup.
Yeah.
There isn't really much to say about it. They will very likely keep 1 Elven Swordmaster as finisher for round 3, and so you might try to not play very huge bodies to deny them the value from Swordmaster, but usually it won't be even necessary. This matchup is just very favorable for Alchemy. So
you can even main drag the last big Swordmaster.
Yeah,
if they got a big Swordmaster, like sometimes they don't even have a big one.
Yeah, exactly. So any questions regarding this matchup, guys?
What is the best way to kill an 11-point Dragoon? Because like when I saw Trinet playing the deck, he used the Hocker supports to boost Dragoons first to 11 before playing them.
Oh, that's actually pretty smart. So, the obvious counterplay to that is to play 11 Alchemy cards instead and make them cry. But assuming you play only 10, And then, okay, so don't even think about using 2 Viper Witches. That's a terrible idea. So instead, you might try to use silver cards first, like create cards. So you deal low amount of damage. For example, you could use Weather, or you could use some damaging effects from Black Blood Runestone. There are some of them. You could even go for the lock with Dasbok Runestone. So if they try to do that, you might try to... You don't just Viper Witcher it immediately. You go for like a way to deal low amount of damage to them and then finish them off with Viper Witcher. Because it's a terrible idea to use a Viper Witch on 1 point Dragoon. So don't even try to do that. Okay, but in general, I believe it's a really clever strategy to keep the Dragoons on 11 points. Okay.
Any question on that? Or maybe like some people have some question against Scoia'tael in general.
Yeah, because now we could go to Hansel next or to Ifni to keep this Scoia'tael theme.
True, there is some Earth needs put in commander, but yeah.
Okay, I believe there are no further questions. Okay, so okay, let's talk about Ifni because it's also from Scoia'tael. Okay, there aren't that many Ifni decks right now going on, but the most popular offenders is the Scourge Ifni, I believe, and then there is the Spelatel Ifni. Okay, so let's talk about the Scourge Ifni first.
Yes, basically the strategy is gonna be quite the same as usual. Just play your tempo with the slave driver, ale and stuff. We just want to do one thing in particular is having like long rows not to stack the ales, because if we stack the ale too much, it's gonna scorch us right away. This is the only thing we need to keep in mind, that matchup. But then it's basically the same of everything else. Play your tempo, try to tempo him, go into a long 1-2 if you want it, to make him use Ifni and Scorches, so you have like a better 1-3 and a better win condition than him. And keep in mind that Agla is the thing too.
Okay, so Agla is pretty much a thing in every Scoia'tael deck, pretty much. But
she's OP, so...
Yeah, against Alchemy, she's the best card in the game, pretty much. Okay, and what else can I say? You might want to consider, think about it, using Mandrake when you know that they are playing Ifni Scourge, and you know that rather easily after they start playing... what are they called? Sorry, I forgot the name. Dolblatana Archers. Once they start lining units with Dolblatana Archers, you're pretty much sure that they are playing the Scourge variant. And then you might use your Mandrake, your Spy, or even your Swallow Potion to buff the enemy units, so you dodge the Scourge entirely. It's particularly effective in round 3 because there is no escape from them once you buff their units. They end up having to either damage their own units or scorch them, and both of them is terrible for them, pretty much.
Also, if they play villain, you can try to buff one of the units. Are those swallow works for enemies?
Yeah, you can play swallow on your enemies. That's
also.
That's also a very good strategy to keep in mind when you play against Hanseld. Okay, you can't really predict their Scourge. Okay, you can predict Scourge if they start lining up units in a very direct way, but if they play Villain, you can just keep Swallow to buff one of their units to dodge Villain entirely.
This is very energy reliant, but you can keep your Runestone, so if they play Villain, you can try to go for either a lock or some like damage to put it to like break the shield and play Viper Witcher.
Yeah, you could try to kill villain, but I believe buffing their units is a more effective way of.
But if you don't have the shows, like you don't have anything to buff, it's also something to consider.
Yeah,
but yeah, Winston
true.
Rather.
True. Okay, so in that matchup, keep your Swallow to block Scorches and Mandrake. That's the general idea. And next, Evenie's Pelatel. This variant uses, most often than not, Farseers and Dolblatana Sentries and just spam Ale, similarly to the way we spam Ale in the Alchemy. So the most obvious way is to just kill Farseers the moment they play them with Viper Witches. Sometimes they will play ADC into Farseer, but it still will be in the range of Viper Witches if you have 10 or more Alchemy, so that's not really an issue for us. And once we kill the Farseers, they're in a really bad position, really. That's pretty much the main reason for why the deck is not very popular or doesn't have good win rates, is because there are a lot of ways to kill Farseers right now, and once they don't have Farseers, they don't really have much long run potential anymore.
So just like keep again, you keep Mandrake for the big dudes at the end, the sentries, and you can even go for like Runestone into Pizza if you're very lucky to run out the sentries.
Yeah, so resets are very good in this matchup, pretty much.
And also, what is like amazing in that matchup, you can use those goddammit Slave Driver into Sage into like another spell, so you can raise a spell in your graveyard. Most spells. I mean, you can use only Alice, you can use Ointment if I'm right. But it's still amazing.
Yeah, so, and then you can also Ointment into Sage once you steal it, which is really good as well. Or Ointment into another Slave Driver into another Sage, because they don't play many units in general, so you most likely than not are going to hit the Sage with the Slave Driver. If
like,
you're lucky.
Even if we can, like, they got Merc is pretty good for us, or even a Farsi could be fine, because we also play a lot of Ace.
Yeah, Farsis are also really good. And so, just make sure to not play too many Mercs, so you don't end up with 0 Alchemy costs in your deck. And still with Vicovar Novices in your hand. Okay, so the matchup is really easy for us. Okay, so there are some different matchup variations of Evenie. The Nova variant is very similar to the Brewer variant, just that the main difference is that they don't use what is it called? Barclay into Cleaver. So it's just simpler for you in general.
Yeah, this one is easier because you can win 1-1 way easier and try to bleed them into Nova 1-2. This is the main strategy when I go in that.
Yeah, but from statistically, most Evening decks on normal ladder are Scourge variants. So yeah. Okay, and that's it regarding Evening. Do you guys have any questions? Okay, Dante was saying something. Sorry, I'm not looking to the chat all the time, just checking it from like every 5 minutes or something.
Yeah, I'm on the chat. Dante said they basically want to longer want River's Alchemy, so Alchemy can get to all units, and that's true. Just go for a Sean 1-3. And play a car into stuff or Vigor Forts. I mean, the usual goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point he makes.
Yeah, you're right. Just against Scourge, you either try to block Scourge and don't build high units, so you just pass at some point in round 1 and round 2, if you have to. Okay.
Next, do we go into Francesca and Fanderman? I would say
there are no. I don't think there are any particular decks for both Francesca and Philavandro, so I'm not sure if there is a point discussing them.
Like there is some variant of Francesca, but they're basically the same as the others, so you're gonna have to apply the same strategy. So is there some end buff into it or some kind of mulligan-ish deck, but it's gonna be the same. Destroy the Dragoons, try to stay out on 1-1 with 1-1, play them, and just have a better 1-3. Usual strategy, but easier.
Yeah, just easier because Francesca is really not a great leader compared to Brewer.
Yeah, like to give you an idea, Francesca Pro Ladder has 30% win rate against Calvate, so...
Okay, so seriously, Francesca should be a 10 points card, then she might be playable, but in this state she's unplayable pretty much. There's really not much reason to play her instead of Brewer, seriously. Like, what's the point? What's the point, really? Okay,
people who are really stubborn, I guess.
Yeah, I guess when people are just bored and just saying like, hey, let's challenge the meta and play a Francesca deck, I guess you can do that and you even will win some matches. It will just be not as good as the Brewer.
The ladder.
Yeah, you can just meme at the ladder pretty much. Okay, still.
Next.
So now we are quitting the Scoia'tael. Do you guys have...
Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions regarding the Scoia'tael matchups?
You see Brewer and you like pray that you win, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's how you do. But as we said earlier, Blue One is still winnable because you have some tempo spike you can use.
Yeah.
But I mean, this match sucks overall and sucks even more in Blue.
Yeah.
So you can try, yeah.
The matchup is bad on the deck builder itself because our matchup is the best when we are able to counter enemy strategy with our high points removal, and Brewer doesn't have anything that we can really remove, so we are in a disadvantage already at this stage of the game. But it's still winnable. Okay.
So we move now. Do we go into Northern Realms?
I guess we could. We could go to Northern Realms.
Interesting.
Currently, okay, the most popular Northern Realm deck right now is obviously the Hansel Machines. Then there is the Armor Radovid and Unit Spam Foltest, I believe.
Unit Spam either 25 or some 40, but there is some.
Yeah, but in general, Foltest is really bad right now, and Armor is also really bad. So let's focus on Machines because that's the main offender of Northern Realms right now. Okay, so this matchup is the matchup where the general knowledge and also guessing shines in because okay, so you have to make a decision first when you win this matchup whether you will be using Viper Witches to try to deny Hansel from pulling his units, or do you abandon that path entirely and if you have 2 or more Viper Witches and preferably Mandrake, then you should be trying to make so Hansel can't pull units at all. But if you have only 1 Viper Witch, and then there is not really much point in even trying. And okay, so assume you have 2 or more Viper Witches, then they will, if they are on red, they will try to abuse you with Tower, so you'll pass, and then they win on equal. So it's better when you are on blue against Hansel, then you just pray that you have Spy in your hand. If you don't, then it's usually the best to just insta-pass and then just hope that you get the Spy on round 2, pretty much.
Dry passing is not that bad because if you have enough Viper Witcher, you can out-tempo him. If he plays Insult and you end up in equal cards 1-3, it's fine. Without Insult, it's fine.
Yeah, but if they don't even use cancelled and you are already going 2 cards down in round 1, then it's going to be really rough. So
and because you can't really do that because of the goddammit done banner, that's gonna you're gonna be -2 and they're gonna have +12 straight up the deck, and they're gonna be able to just comes back at you, and you're gonna have to pass at like -1, so it's gonna win +1, which is the worst situation you can ever be.
okay, so still keep in mind that you can pass if they go exactly on like -19, -20 after Toller, because they sometimes might miscalculate and they won't be able to pull Dun Banner. If they do that, you can just pass, because in general machines, unless they pull with Hanseld, at best can push for 19 points with Seltkirk and other goals usually.
They can get a twist, but they're gonna have to play the goals, so you find with them having one less goal.
No. If they win on equal playing 1 gold, it's still not worth for us.
That's not good too,
but if they are exactly on -19 or -20, then most likely they won't be able to push it. Okay. And also, if they go for like -30 or 31, then they won't be able to make it with 1 card most often than not, even with doing banners.
Also, going dry passing can be like a good strategy, because it might fuck the mulligan if they do some 10 banner, which happens quite often.
It can, if the cancelled prey is really good, then they will know that you will just play Viper Witches to kill their machines, and if they are smart, they will kill extra copies in their hand, so later they will just Nenneke the cards we just killed, rest them back, and then we are fucked, basically.
Yeah, the biggest issue in the matchup.
So, but they have to be really smart to do that. So,
yeah.
For normal ladder, that usually won't happen. So, because Hansel in general try to keep as little very little machines in hand. They usually try to keep as little as possible. So, even against Alchemy, they don't often figure out that you can keep extra copies, just to be sure. Okay, and also, there are currently 2 variants of Hanseld. The Bloody Baron and the Villain Tretomer variant. That's the main variants, at least, I believe. And if they play Villain Tretomer, then similarly to the Scourge variant of Evening, you can play your Mandrake or your what is it called? Swallow Potion.
The Swallow. Or
yeah,
can,
to buff.
If you don't have those options, you can do the thing, play Runestone into some damage to break the shield, and then play a Viper Witcher.
Okay, but then again, you might not have Viper Witches because you use them to kill machines. Okay, so then you can use your buff cards to buff enemy units, so they will scorch themselves instead of you. Okay, and so you try to. So in round 1, you try to deny enemy machines by killing them constantly with Viper Witcher. Just make sure to not kill random machines, and by random I mean what are they called? The machines that are usually not played in the deck. So they pretty much always play battering rams in the deck. Vast majority of Hanselds also uses Reinforced Ballistas and Siege Masters. So if you see that they're pulling, let's say,
a Reinforced Trebuchet store, like you don't want to kill them. Sometimes they run Ballista, but like it's only 30% of the case. So I would say if you see a Ballista out of a range, it's a bit of risk, but just don't kill it. Don't spend too much on killing it.
Yeah, especially if they wouldn't have match value pulling it from the deck. Then you might just keep it. But so keep in mind you can often try to leave the machines that they most likely don't play in their decks on the board, and just focus on battering rams and reinforced ballistas most of the time. But if you see that they play a machine from their hand, then they most likely have 3 copies of them in the deck. So keep that in mind still. So once you run out of ways to deny your opponent from playing cancelled optimally, you just pass most often than not. So you pass, you go to the next round, and then you try doing exactly the same thing. So you ointment into Viper Witches to deny them the pool, and you just hope that they don't have Nenneke to play to just res everything you just killed and play it again. That would be pretty sad. Currently 55% of handsolds use Nenneke on normal ladder. Still, even with Nenneke, they might be unable to have enough machines in their hand and in winch. So I just recommend to use Viper, which is smart, because even when we're trying to deny the pool with handsold, keep in mind that we are playing for not optimal value, because Viper Witcher to kill battering ram is only 11 points, and battering rams are 12 points play usually at least. So when we go for the deny handsold strategy, we have to commit to it entirely, pretty much.
Yeah, and I would say try not to keep the slave driver.
Yeah, slave drivers are really bad in this matchup, because the best slave driver you can get is slave driver into battering ram into a 12-point battering ram. And from experience, I can tell you it doesn't happen very often, because the only 3-point unit that the machines play is pretty much only handsold, and you won't be putting pretty much any other units from the deck low. You either kill them or leave them be. So rams will very rarely find any value at all. And reinforced ballistas are also only 9-point play. And then you can either pull Siege Master or Dune Banner, and both of them are bad. So so obviously.
And also, if they play like a Bloody Baron, the small unit is gonna fit the Baron very, very badly.
Yeah,
so
true.
Try not to play too much small units when you play against Ansalt. That's a general advice.
Okay, so also try to keep Mandrake. If you have Last Play, it's good to keep Mandrake, because then you might try to deny Bloody Baron by just resetting it back. And if they play Villain Threat MF, then you can use Mandrake to buff one of their units, so it can work in both of those matchups. If you...
in some cases, it can deny like a battering ram. Let's say the only last card is battering ram, and insert you battering ram, and you're happy.
Okay.
Doesn't happen much though.
Yeah, so Mandrake is a card that has quite many uses in this matchup, despite the fact that they don't buff many units. Okay, and what else?
Can be also using Carvate in that matchup, but it's gonna happen less than other matchups. But you can also build a very strong 1/3 and go on equal with the 11th strength Carvate in your graveyard. If they don't play Nenneke into Dune Banner.
Yeah, so you either deny them handsold, or you just abandon the strategy and play for value and try to overcome the fact that they pull a massive handsold more often than not, and just try to live with this. So you either go to those two paths and then play accordingly, pretty much.
If you go for pure value, you can try either to force answer 1/1 or win 1/1 and answer 1/2.
Yeah, from experience I can tell you that even if you lose on equal round 1, after they pull a massive handsold, you can still win the game if you go for if you still didn't play your spy and you just play it now during round 2, and you can still win if you go for massive Calvate round 3 golds chain. Usually your golds are better than their golds in round 3.
Except Selchuk, yeah.
Yeah. And Bloody Baron, huge Bloody Barons can be bad.
Yeah, but we can control it with Mandrake, as we said.
Yeah, exactly. And Asire, also remember, this matchup can get really, really bad for them if they play Thaler from hand, and then you manage to resurrect their Thaler back to the deck, because very often they play Aljo's Double Cross. And if they have Aljo's Double Cross in round 3 and you resurrect Thaler, then they just have a dead card all of a sudden, and it's really bad for them. So yeah, keep that in mind, so that you can resurrect Thaler for the Aljo's Double Cross.
And you can also use Asaya to put the 1v back in the deck, some cases.
Yeah, if you start round 2 or round 3, you usually want to put Roundvid back into the deck to deny the crew value. And also remember to play around Scourge, so you put units in such a way to not line them up for Scourge when possible. That's because if they manage to somehow get a double Scourge on 15 power units, it can get really bad, really fast.
Sometimes they're gonna play like in a very direct way. They're gonna like ping your units to put them on the same power, and when you recognize the situation, you can like do something, play a Swallow on one of their units or your own, play a Spy, play Mandrake, or is it like in other matchups, other Scotch matchups.
Yeah, true. Okay, do you have any more points? Do you have anything more to say about the matchup?
Watch out about the June banner every time. Try to have a little 20 counter somewhere on your PC to remember to try your best to don't play more than 21, because the banner is gonna fuck you up.
Yeah, and if you manage to not pull the Dune banners to round 3, then the mulligan is going to be way worse.
Yeah. This is the risk of playing Dune banner. It can fuck your mulligan. So this is what we want. And if they pull Dune banner in 1-1, they can put it back in 1-3 with Neneke, and this is gonna be devastating, because 1-3 we want to play the most tempo as possible. But if they have the Dune banner, it's -12. Like, let's say we play our big tempo, then Dune banner comes out, then they play Baron, it's GG.
Yeah, pretty much. So keep Dune banner also in mind. This is a matchup where you just have to keep a lot of factors in mind, and also
it's pretty tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup, especially if you are unable to deny their Hansel and they play smart, and it's especially devastating if you don't manage to find your Spy and they find it and you are on blue. Then it can be really bad, like almost unwinnable at that point.
Yeah, because they're gonna always be able to catch up 13 if you pass.
Exactly. Okay. Any questions regarding the Hansel matchup?
That's a good question.
Sorry.
The person who left. Hey, back. That's Faber.
What?
Like, you... At the moment he said, do you have any question, you left. Like, that's funny.
I never. It must have like temporarily disconnected because I never left.
Yeah, but yeah. Does anyone have a question? I think no.
I assume not. All right, so that's the Hanseld matchup. Let's talk briefly about Radovid armor and Foltest unit spam very briefly, because they are not hard nor popular matchups right now, so I don't think there is.
Like, armor is gonna be pretty easy. You can kill right away the what is called the Night Elects.
Yeah, the Night Elects.
So you deny the engine.
Yeah, and that's the best way of them to win. That's the best way for them to win most matchups, is to just play Night Selects, because they're engine that gives you 2 points per turn, which is really good. So if they stick on the board, they are really really powerful for them. But it's not the case because we have Viper Witches.
Like we have Viper Witcher, the slave driver in that matchup is amazing because if we get neither, like say, don't really have anything to break the armor. If we get the, I always forget the names. The Redundant Elite is great.
You can even play Tormented Mage to.
Yeah, you can play Mage. There's so much things to do with drive in that matchup, and it's kind of easy. Sometimes you're gonna have more Night Elite than them, so you're gonna just build more tempo, and they can't really do anything about it.
Yeah, because the only way for them to counter Night Elect is to play Cavalry to remove armor from them. But it's really suboptimal for them to use Cavalry like this. So it's just an easy matchup for us. Okay. Any questions again about the armor Radovid?
In 25% of those decks, they play Vincent. So that can be, if you see that are like putting armor everywhere on 1-3, be aware of that. But you can keep your Mandrake if you feel like it. To deny, like, you keep your Mandrake because in best cases you didn't advance. And in worst cases you can, like, destroy Cavalry or something. So it's gonna be more or less 15 plus the 6 of a Vezemi if you play it with Vezemi. So it's never gonna be bad to keep it.
Okay, so any questions, people? I assume not. Alright, so now let's talk about Fall Test very briefly as well. Okay, according to statistics, this matchup is actually bad for Alchemy, and for a good reason, because they don't really have any engines, and they play mostly only small units, denying the value from our Viper Witches pretty much entirely. And there is not really the only way for us. Okay, so let's talk about the. Actually, wait. Okay, so Fall Test isn't very popular, and there are quite a few variants of it. But in general,
yeah, because it's the 25 and the 40 cards variants.
Yeah, from what I see, only 35% of people play the Hubbard variant.
Yeah.
And I thought that's the most popular one, actually.
No, it's not much popular. And same as armor, if you see 40 cards, you keep Mandrake until they end, and you try to have Let's say because they're gonna play cards. And you don't want that because it's gonna be 35 cards or something, 35 points, and you want to Mandrake that one. And if you Mandrake trick, you win. Yeah,
pretty much. And I can see why it's a tough matchup because you just they play Aretusa Adepts more often than not to like get points on the get engines on the board, and you don't really have a lot of ways to deny weather. You just have to get lucky with runestones to deny weather, pretty much, and they just keep playing Blue Stripe Scouts and with River Scouts, and you could try to play Viper Witches and Blue Stripe Scouts to deny another pulse with River Scouts, but they're on like what, 4 or 5 points? It's just really bad for us, and we get really low value with Viper Witches, and they just get static value with Scouts, and they can also just play Machines later, and there is not really much we can do in this matchup. We just end up spamming points, and more often than not, they do it better than us because.
And if we spam like too much points, they always have the done banner in most cases.
So yeah, like, they very often play the banners as well.
Like if we go for a tempo spike, we just get high ISOD. And that gets just over. Pretty
much, yeah. But the matchup isn't very popular right now, so.
It's still doable though. Like if we manage to build a good one and to deny the Hubert if it's a 40 card deck. Like if it's not a 40 card deck, I would say Mandrake Carvate to get like the big 11 at the end, and if it's a 40 card, skip Mandrake for Hubert, and then it's GG.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes they also run Field Medic variant. You should be aware that they might be running Field Medics, and then they try to go for a long round for long rounds in general. So don't pass too early against Foltest, just in case if they end up playing field medics, because then they get massive value in long rounds. Okay. Do you have anything more to say, Kara? About it?
No, honestly, like Hogwarts are better. Dishway could be an issue, but Hogwarts are mostly better. So like I think the key of that is the 1-3 short 1-3 goals.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. Okay, do you guys have any questions about the Foltest matchup?
Or like any question about Northern Realms in general?
Yeah, because we'll be quitting. We will be quitting Northern Realms right now, I think.
Yeah. I would say no.
Okay, so now that I think of it, sometimes you might find some Chaos matchups. The guys that just play Kedwengi Revenants or something. Yeah, just
This one is easy.
yeah, you just kill Kedwengi Revenants instantly with Viper Witches and you win. That's pretty much it. Seriously.
Only they concede.
Yeah. It's just there is really nothing to say about this matchup. Okay, and next, so maybe we'll discuss monsters, and then we will discuss.
Yeah, then we discuss Nilfgaard at the end.
Yeah. Okay,
I'd
so
rather stay on the mirror, but let's do.
maybe Araka's Queen first.
Yeah, consume, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so theoretically there are two variants of consume: the Necker spam and non-Necker spam. But let's ignore the not Necker spam and just focus on the.
Spam is so easy to recognize, and you keep Mandrake for the moment they play one Necker and GG. Like that's it.
Okay, so that's the not Necker spam. Okay, so Necker spam. In this matchup, I recommend. So in general, it's not a great matchup more often than not, but it's very winnable, especially if you. Okay, so if you Mandrake instantly, the Necker, you have only one way of denying the Neckers, and very often right now people play a lot of ways to play additional Neckers after the first one is removed. They play Summoning Circle, they play Marlorn. I'm not sure if that's the correct way you read it.
The Shadow Dude that plays Necker.
Yeah, and yeah, sometimes they even play Decoy on the guy to pull additional Neckers. They keep extra Neckers in hand very often, just to make sure. In general, if you play Mandrake on their Neckers, more often than not, it will end up doing nothing because they will play the next one anyway. And if you could try playing Viper Witches on the Neckers, but it's going to come short because you only have 3 Viper Witches. You're pretty much playing a 1-point bronze because you play Viper Witcher 5 on 5, you kill the Necker, and then they get 4-point Necker or better, so you play a 0 tempo play. And then at best you remove what? 3 Neckers? If you pass and then play additional Viper Witches, then at best you remove what? 5, 6 Neckers if you really go hard on this. But you keep playing for 0 tempo doing this, and
yeah, and that's the big issue because the kind of only way to really beat Necker is to go very, very high on tempo and force them to give you 1-1. But if you keep destroying Necker, they will not have to do that because they will very, very shortly be able to catch up on your tempo and force you to pass, which is something you don't want.
Okay, so instead of doing that, like trying to deny Neckers, I recommend trying instead to push a lot of tempo on the round 1, because vast majority of consume players will never pass round 1, even if they are like -30 or something. They will just keep playing, and then they play like, let's say they play like the second Warrior Necker, and you're on like +30. You just pass and watch them go 3 cards down on you or something. Really, that's
doable.
Yeah, that's it's. I do the same. I do the same thing when I play Brewer. I just push a lot of tempo and pass, and I often win with just doing that.
A lot of consume player tends to keep only one Neko wire in hand. So what you can do is when they kill it, you play Asire because you're not really gonna have another really good Asire during the game. And like you put the Neko wire into the deck and they don't have any other way to cycle it. So they can't really create another Neko.
Alternatively, you could also, if they haven't really killed any Nekkers, you could also, during round 3, start with assiring the Nekkers, the 4 points Nekkers, so they can't really play Brewers anymore to resurrect them. Or also, because there are 4 points, if they pull them from the existing Nekkers, they are going to be way lower than the high points Nekkers that would be like 15 or something. So you can also consider actually resurrecting Nekkers back into the deck during round 3.
Also, they don't play Spy. So if you win 1-1 in Nilfgaard, like if you go very very deep, play shit ton of tempo, and you force them to pass, you win 1-1, you will have a free Spy and you will have free card advantage that you can use on 1-3. And for 1-3, what I would recommend is go as short as possible. You can even go in top deck 1-3. Because if you go in top deck 1-3 and they don't draw a Nekker, they do like a slider or something, you will win. You will win most of the cases.
Yeah, that's
true.
true.
You go in 1 or 2 cards, you go 1-2 cards, and in those cards you get Mandrake or Vesemir into Mandrake. So they play something, you play something, they consume it, and you destroy that bit consume unit. It's also something totally doable.
Okay, so in this matchup I recommend just trying to kill their... what are they called? Sorry. Ran Warriors when possible with Viper Witchers. That's the best way you can use Viper Witchers in my opinion in this matchup. And also you can try using Runestones. Remember that you could use... what can Black Blood kill in this matchup, actually?
Sorry?
Sorry. For a moment I thought you could use Black Blood to kill some of their monsters, but I believe they are out of the category.
You can use Black Blood to kill Aneka Wire, but that's gonna be very situational, but something doable.
Okay, but you can, but you can
say
still
Black
use.
Blood.
You can you can use the runestone to try to fish for the log, or you could use the runestone to fish for the reset. Pretty much.
Or you can, if you got Swizz with Runestone, you won.
Yeah, if you got that in round 3, they are going to cry.
This is gonna happen sometimes, and just gonna give you 3 wins.
Yeah, expect people to write you and cry to make you to cry you a river after the game. And that's why create is fine, because you can get because it's balanced. Yeah, okay. So
yeah, at the end it's either make them go like 3 cards down or something, or push for 1-1 and make them pass in equal, especially if you're on red, so you get a free Spy. And go for the shortest 1-3 as possible, even top deck if you feel like it. Like if you have almost only golds in your hand, in your deck, sorry, you can go top deck.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
If they only get a 1 wire slicer, even like only a 20 points Nekker, if you got a good coverage, you can win that. Or if you got Mandrake, instant win.
Yeah.
Vesemir into Mandrake, just win.
Okay, and Rabble, yes, I have Parrot in my home, so that's the noise in the background.
We had some background sound, totally fine.
Okay, so do you guys have any questions regarding the Consume matchup? Feel free to ask, really. Okay, so I assume not. Alright, so next, do we talk about Dagon?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll be going to bathroom
okay,
for
I
a
was just
moment,
thinking
and you will
yeah,
just
yeah.
talk about it. Okay, sure.
30 seconds pause because I have to get some drinks.
Oh, as well. Okay, so we'll just make a pause. Be right back, guys.
So, how's the weather?
Yep, sorry for the wait, guys. I guess Fanderman is not back, so I will start with Dagon. So Dagon is not really an easy matchup because of first reason he has great tempo and weather with Dagon and Foglet. And we don't really have anything to deal with weather except create. And the big question you have to ask yourself with this matchup is, do I deny the Death Wish thing, which is either Orchestra or Dao? Like killing a Dao is gonna be negative tempo for you because you're gonna it's gonna create 2 tempo. So you're gonna play 3 card bronze. So you have to ask yourself if that's worth it to play 3 card bronze to deny his entire strategy. Same with with Orchestra, but Orchestra is fine because it only makes 4, but he's not gonna think the Death Wish on Orchestra anyway. You have to recognize, is he gonna play a long, or if he's gonna play a long one, I would say kill the Orchestra. And if it's not gonna be a long one, just don't kill it. What is key here is gonna be the pass at the good moment. Try to just shit some tempo at the beginning so you stay ahead, even if he plays Wither and the Orchestra, and then you pass. The slave drivers are pretty key here because you can get some Orchestra too or stuff.
Okay, I'm back.
Hey, back. So I just started with Dagon.
Okay, which version did you start? Because there's
the Death Wish version, classic Death Wish version.
Okay, sure.
I mean, there's no Vine classic version, but they don't really differ a lot.
Yeah, true.
Like this tier is gonna be a bit different, but honestly, it's the same.
Yeah. Sure.
So try to see, are you gonna destroy the Death Wish or not? It's gonna be the question you're gonna have to ask yourself. When are you passing? Like if they got 2 Orchestra and 2 Wither on you, and you still ahead, just pass because you're not gonna be able to keep points up. The graveyard, he gonna matter a lot. If you can Asire and Genii Brewers is very good for you, or like give him contra what I think can help. Do you have anything to say on that, Fanderman? Don't know what you think about it.
Okay, so also remember that vast majority of Dagon decks also use slicers, and you might want to use Asire to deny their slicers in later rounds. So you just have to look at the graveyard very closely, and also you might also try to deny Brewer's Ritual completely with Asire in round 3 if they only have like 2 units or 3 in the graveyard, then you might use Asire to deny that, and it can be really game-winning when it happens.
Yeah, another game-winning factor that can be is if they play Brewers with, let's say, 1 Orchestra DAO, it means that they don't have a DAO in hand because you don't want to play 2 DAOs, or maybe they're baiting you, but in that case, rest in peace. And you want to Mandrake that DAO. Like, using Mandrake at the best time possible is gonna win you games. If you waste Mandrake, you're gonna lose though. So it's very risky. It's like high risk, high reward strategy.
Yeah, and you never really know when they have more DAOs in hand or they don't. Seriously,
I would say like when they play it from Brewers, it shows that they have to worth it to play one, but they can like get another one with Slider if they still have another in Graveyard, or they can play it from like Shadow. I mean, Mile how do you say that card? Damn, Myrolon.
Oh, yeah.
They can play it from sheet roll and then slice on it. I mean, there's so much way to get it.
Also, it's important in general to play around Rotfind because they sometimes play it in Dagon, and so make sure to keep your units.
Keep your row equal, but this is what you do, and like most time with Alchemy, since you want to cut the 8s, and you're not scared of Scorch in that matchup.
Well, it depends. For example, in some matchups you really don't care how many units you have in what row, and you just play around Scorch or something, you know.
Yeah, but here you don't really feel Scorch.
Yeah, exactly. So we just play units equally divided amongst the rows. And also, if you're lucky, you might be able to even get Arcspore into Griffin or even Dao into Griffin with your slave drivers.
Yeah.
Or you could even try to get Slicers into some units, but you need to set up it first.
Yeah, you can do some chains. It's totally doable.
Yes.
It's gonna be easy to set up because they got Arcspore stuff and might pick one of your slave driver or anything, or even the Wither stuff. So it's gonna be easy to get the slicer out.
Yeah, but especially if you use it in round 3.
Yep.
If you go for slicer round 3, then it's usually easy to set up. Okay, I mean easy to use even. Okay, and other than
Pretty
that,
tough matchup, like overall. Keep
well,
in mind they got Oswald also. Can be a good Mandrake target if you need to.
yeah, but they very often will use Osriel on a spy, and then the Mandrake just insta-kills him. You can also just use Black Blood to kill Osriel when they play him, alternatively.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay, so that's the Death Wish. Do you have anything more to say about this deck?
No, it's just not an easy matchup. Try to see when you pass, like when you have to pass, because you will have to pass at some point. And Mandrake is gonna be the key. Use Mandrake.
Oh, and also you can try to there are two ways. You either okay, so in this matchup I recommend either fishing for them to use Dagon and then passing immediately after that, or trying to get weather removal with your runestones, with your create cards.
Runestone could be interesting if you got luck or something. Just never play fake Siri to them. Remember they have Cyclops.
Yeah, okay.
Don't do that.
That's true. Okay, guys, so do you have any questions about the Dagon Death Wish matchup? I assume not.
It's not that popular anymore anyway.
I don't know. On normal ladder, Dagon is actually more popular than Arrakis Queen, you know?
Yeah, but she's not popular either.
But some people play the general of monsters, you know? It happens. It happens. Okay. Okay, so next let's talk about Bloodman decks in general.
Or Bloodman, yeah.
Okay, so so never go into complete long round against Bloodmans. It's usually easy to see when your opponent is playing Bloodman in the first 3-4 rounds. You know they are playing Bloodman, and against Bloodman you usually want to go into a mediocre length round 1. And I recommend trying to use your runestones then to try to deny your opponent some Bloodman.
Bloodman can be good if you got Nikurat. You can deny Moonlight.
Yeah, so you try to deny the Moonlight, but the best way to win this matchup is after you play the meteor long round 1. So they used up some of their Moonlights, and then they were likely just after they win round 1, because you don't really want to win round 1. It's not really going to be possible unless you go for massive tempo with early plays.
Yeah, but it's gonna be waste.
Yeah, so they will usually dry pass round 2, and then in round 3 they will have only like 2 Bloodmans remaining in the deck. You counter each of them by playing. I recommend just playing Telekinesis to counter the Bloodman, and then you can also try playing more create cards to counter their Bloodman, especially with Blood Block. You can get either Fog or the Bloodman effect. And both
You can get Nekurat, you can get Abaya.
Yeah, Abaya into Fog and Nekurat into Bloodman. Okay, and so you have to be lucky and hit the Moonlight with Telekinesis. That's going to be very devastating for them.
They're never gonna have more than 4. So if they play 2/1/1 and 2/1/3, and you deny at least.
No, they have Nekurat as well. They will have 4.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be 5. Yeah, true.
How 5? 4.
Yeah, it's 5.
How do they play 5? How do they play 5?
Tris. They play Tris.
Oh, if they play Tris, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they mostly play Tris. What you can do in our matchups, pretty cute, is to put back Sirens into the deck. So they got 4 points bonuses.
Yeah, and sometimes they play Slicers into Sirens, and then you can deny that as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So just never go into too long rounds against Moonlight, and try to keep your denials for round 3 to deny their Moonlight, and then they auto-lose. Okay. So that's about it. Any questions about the matchup? I presume not.
There's just so many matchups.
Yeah, try to watch for Miruna, something they played in Moonlight. So keep a Viper Witch in hand, you never know.
Oh, you mean this 4-point succubus?
Yeah, the succubus. It's not common, but it's not uncommon either. You have to watch for it, and since we often have like 1 or 2 very high units in mid long run, they can play it.
Yeah, so just keep that in mind and keep a Viper Witcher, Anointment, or anything, pretty much. Okay, so...
And if they play Imleris, just laugh at them.
Yeah, if they play Imlerif, you can just Viper Witch him immediately, or even Mandrake him into Oblivion. I mean, Viper Witcher kills him instantly, unless they pull it from Royal Decree and kill a unit in such a way that he doesn't lose armor. Then he's out of Viper Witcher range.
You're fine.
Yeah. Okay, so if you presume your opponent might be playing a Sabbath, just keep Mandrake and win the game. That's it. Okay.
Next, I think no one has questions.
Do we want to talk about Red Index?
Oh, it's not that it's not that good, but we can.
Okay, do you guys want us to discuss a Iridian matchup?
Yeah. Do we need to?
Go for it. I believe in you.
Oh, please do. Okay.
I would say, you can kill the Wider because it's gonna give you full value, which I got at 10 francs, and you're gonna deny the Wider effect. So it's easy target. Then we don't have a lot against Frost, so it's gonna be the same strategy as Moonlight.
Yeah, you pretty much want to play mediocre length rounds, just so they can't go for a one long round where they pull all the engines effects and you just cry. You just want to make them use half of them and then another half of them in the another round. That's pretty much it. And you have to be very careful about the Iris, the Iris, that
Yeah.
they will very likely play it at some point. Okay, so
Yeah, you can
you
manage
might.
it
There is a way to play around it because you might play. Okay, so the usual plan for them is to play Frost Effect, then Wild Hunt Rider on the same row, and then just kill Iris instantly. But you can play around it by killing Wild Hunt Riders instantly with your Viper Witches, and then once they are forced to play Iris, which will not die instantly because there are no riders on the board, you can just buff it with your cards, like with Mandrake, or with Swallow, or even Ale. Yeah, and then
I mean,
this is going to be devastating for them.
if you want to play Mandrake, and that just destroy it because they can play. When they play Iris, they're gonna play Caretaker. I mean, they always play Caretaker anyway, and like Iris plus Caretaker and Iris is devastating. So if you can banish it. To be honest.
Yeah, actually, you're correct.
But like Mandrake, you mostly want to keep it for Inmurder, but Inmurder is gonna come out before Iris anyway, so we're fine. It's pretty easy, honestly. We don't have really any way to deal with weather, but except passing. So you're just gonna have to recognize when you want to pass.
Yeah, so
No, it's
just
not
make sure to not
that
go into
hard.
2 long rounds against Aerodin.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. You can try to fish for Necrad to Weather Clear or Abaya.
Also, sometimes they're gonna play Druaka early. Like,
Which card?
Druaka.
Which card did you mean?
Water Druaka, like the boat that buffs.
Oh, the
really
Wild Boar spam. The Wild Hunt
means-
Trackers.
That means only one thing. That means Immunis. They're gonna play Immunis and just keep Mandrake or pass.
Yeah, and just keep Trackers with your Viper Witches then.
Yeah, you can kill them, and they're gonna play. And you just he forfeit and you send GG. Gonna
Yeah, that actually happens. Okay, so that's the Aerodin matchup. Any questions? I assume not.
Isha is waiting, so let's wait what Isha is gonna ask. Okay,
Oh,
You're
thanks.
welcome.
You're welcome. Exactly.
I will be heavily disappointed if you don't cover the Relict matchup.
Okay, let's go to Nilfgaard now.
We will leave you immensely disappointed. I am sorry.
Yeah. I'm not sorry.
Makes me sad.
Okay. So the Nilfgaard matchups. The Cal
I
wait
would
first.
say- I would say we do the mirror last because it's gonna be the longest one. Just go through Kekuis through Unbuff and with it. I mean, with it, it's just maybe the freest matchup for us because he's gonna play Manognel. We're gonna destroy it, and he's gonna cry in bed. GG. And
Okay.
we have a battle 1-3.
Yeah, reveal pretty much. The classic reveal tries to push heavily in the first few rounds, and then they kinda end up having no more cards to play. So if you survive the first burst, and you do that rather easily because you just keep killing their what are they called? Mangonels.
Mangonel, and if we need to, we can burst a bit with Kavit or like Vezemi or something.
Yeah, so after you do that, you pretty much win because they, unlike Alchemy, they don't really have any finishers. So yeah, that's it.
Just watch out for Scorch, but it's gonna be the same strategy as the other Scorch. It's just either you have units with different strength, or you buff one of them, or if they play villain, you can also destroy it. I mean, same as always.
Yeah. Okay.
The
So that's
hand
reveal.
buff- Yeah. And buff is pretty tough. And buff is a pretty tough matchup because we don't really have any way to like deny the strategy, and then they're gonna have better bronzes and better golds than us.
Hmm.
The best we can do is try to use a Mandrake into the.
Actually, this
give it a
matchup
knife.
is very easy. You're actually mistaken.
Really?
There is a very there is one reason for why this matchup is a joke. Slave drivers are balanced.
Oh yes, slave driver. Forget about them.
Yeah, so you basically play slave driver, pray to God you get spotter, and then they cry.
Yeah. Good.
And then you just resurrect the same spotter and the same slave driver and you get the spotter, and it's just so freaking disgusting, honestly. And
we can ointment spotters.
yeah, you can ointment into more spotters. And
Something you can do, like you can pass in some cases, because you know when they play knight they're gonna have to magic it and they put it back into the deck, which is -18 for them. So in some situation, you know they're gonna have to do that, is because if they don't, the deck is not gonna work. So they're gonna be forced to pick 2 cards. So you can just pass and see them being forced going 2 cards down.
okay, so basically, if you play on blue against hand buff, you try to play for like 16 tempo, then they play knight, then you pass, and then they might end up going 2 cards down because they play.
Yeah.
They will play Emperor into and return their knight. And if you are on red, then you try to make them go 2 cards down by just playing Spy or something.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
It's easy when you're on red, pretty much.
Yeah. And then you can play, as you say, it's spotter and stuff.
Yeah, and you play Mandrake to kill their biggest units. You
Yeah,
Runestone into
Mandrake
Peter
is-
because you're a very good player, obviously. And that's it. Yeah. And you just pray that you get the spotters with slave drivers, and that's it.
Santu says that 16 might not be enough. Yeah, if they play as Aimé plus Vezemé plus Watch. it's
Okay,
17 or-
if they do that, yeah. They also might
I
put
mean,
they also might play Royal Decree with
yeah,
Vesemir.
Wild Decree, that can be 19.
Still, from my experience, it's difficult to put 19 tempo with
Okay.
with
Decree
Alchemy.
doesn't pull Roach. Yeah, true.
Oh yeah, Decree doesn't pull Roach, you're right. It might be difficult
thinking-
for Alchemy to put plus 15 tempo on turn 1 with no boards from your opponent, so
Yeah.
usually when you're on blue you will end up not passing after the first play because you don't want them to get the buffed knight back into the hand, only going 1 card down. That's not going to be good for you.
So you can do some funny stuff with SI, like you can give them back something like the Magna Division. They
Yeah,
only have
because
3.
they only run Wyvern Scale Shields with them, but then they might counter with their own Asire to get Wyvern Scale
they do.
Shields back. Yeah. Okay. And what else?
Slave driver and Chuvi cover medic into their own spotter, so they can't shred it anymore. Oh, yeah.
They don't very often
25.
play Vicavara medics. They sometimes do it.
50%.
On normal ladder, 40%.
For that, it's 50.
Okay, I see. Okay.
Any question on hand buff?
I assume not.
So yeah, Quake is fine.
Exactly. Once they nerf create, we might have to reconsider this match.
That's gonna be a tough. I honestly want that deck to disappear. Just not fun to play against and play with.
Yeah. Okay, so
They're
now
in
we
the
go
middle.
the Calvate. Oh, there is also the Soldier matchup.
Oh, yeah,
Okay, so there are 2 Calvate decks right now: the Soldier deck and the Alchemy deck. So you have to make sure that you don't get baited, and when you play against Calvate, don't assume immediately that it's Alchemy, because that's exactly what soldiers want you to think. That's the way they win the game. So you always play at least 1 card to see what they play, and once they play soldiers, you know that you're going to just spam Viper Witchers on them. You play 3 Viper Witches, deny them some cards, then they end up putting some anyway. some soldiers, and once you feel like you're unable to keep ahead of them, you just pass, and then resurrect Viper Witches to kill the others engines they put on and just win.
Thing is, like, sorry, it's only 10%, so might want to take the risk of try pass, which is only 10%, but wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah, you can also just open with Slave Driver, and then you know immediately if they are soldiers.
I mean, you can do that because if you play against Alchemy, you can. No, because if you play pretty bad, if you play like that against Alchemy, you don't really get anything.
Yeah, it can be pretty bad against Alchemy. But if you're on red, there are no such problems for you.
Oh no.
If you're on red, you don't have such problems.
I mean, if you're on one and they drive pass, yeah, you wanna play.
Okay, if they dry pass on you when you're on red, don't dry pass round 2, because if there are soldiers, you most likely lose then.
Yeah, but like you play slave driver, so either it's soldier and you don't pass, or either it's alchemy and then you pass. And then like the alchemy mirror, it's basically like graveyard management.
Yeah, you're right.
Both of you gonna dry pass, so you're gonna have an empty graveyard. And the goal is to try to have stuff in your graveyard and make your opponent put stuff in your graveyard to be able to unbreak the ointment, because you're gonna have ointment in your end, or like you're gonna have some ointments whatsoever during the game. So
okay, so you never use Viper Witches to kill their units.
Yeah.
You only damage them, but never kill them. Pretty much. And
like, if at the beginning of the turn they have stuff in the graveyard, you instantly play Asire to put that back in the deck. Let's say, like, I don't know, they got one Viper Witcher and one Slave Driver. Asire, you put them back. So they have nothing left. You want the ointment to be brick. And it's basically who's gonna have the less bricked ointment's gonna win. Because you're gonna have the same points anyway.
Exactly. And Slave Drivers are any unit from your deck +1, so keep Slave Drivers. And Vilgefortz is balanced.
It's gonna be Vilgefortz. One of the key cards gonna be Vilgefortz, of course.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Don't be the idiot I faced the other day that played Frost against me. Like he played what's that card again? Vanema. He played Frost, and I was like, "Thanks, dude. You put free stuff in my graveyard," and I kept playing Slave Drivers into the Frost, so the Frost was only 1, and it unbricked all my ointments. And
yeah,
I had
so
+1.
So don't play Weathers in the mirror. Don't do that.
Or you can play.
You could try Fog. Fog,
yeah,
but nothing else.
Fog, so.
Okay.
Abaya puts Wayne, and Wayne's gonna kill stuff at some point.
Yeah. Okay. What else about the mirror? Keep in mind that they might have Kahir.
Yeah.
So okay, right now Kahir is in 56% of the decks. So mandraking their Calvate. It will work when they have Kahir.
I mean, I don't think you really need that, because if they have Kahir, they're gonna play Cabbage 1-2. When you draw pass, like you pass 1-2, they're gonna play Cabbage to allow Kai to be playable. Or if they don't, they're gonna Mulligan it, because they're not gonna have a way to destroy it. Because
but they have one less gold. That's still very good.
That's still pretty good, because you want Vilgefortz to be used on a bronze 2 out of the ointments. So you want to remove Kai from your hand whatsoever, or play Cabbage 1-2 when the opponent dry pass.
Okay, so pretty much in this matchup in mirror, you usually want to dry pass on blue. If they dry pass when you're on red, you dry pass round 2, and just play when they dry pass on you, play Slave Driver to make sure that they are not soldiers.
Yeah.
And if there are soldiers, you don't dry pass round 2. And
so try to play your units in a way that there is nothing more than 10, and try to play your non-bone stuff as late as possible, except Asaya, if you need to put stuff back in the deck, so they don't have targets for Viper Witcher. Because if the only targets for Viper Witcher is one of your bones, you can erase it. So you're like, thanks, dude.
Yeah, you're right.
And even sometimes you have to play stuff suboptimally. Like, let's say you have only bronzes except Vezemi, so they have to like choose either if they play a 15 strength Witcher, but allows you to have something in your graveyard, or they play an 11 strength Witcher and doesn't allow you in your graveyard. This is a decision like you will have to make, and they will have to make.
Also, make sure to not overbuff your minions because Mandrake is a thing.
Because Mandrake is a thing, and you're gonna give them Viper Witcher targets.
Yeah. So that's it for the matchup. Do you have anything else to say?
Create is fine. It's gonna be who got the best thing out of the create. Anything else? Yeah, keep Mandrake because some of them play Joachim, and Mandrake in the Joachim pool is pretty good. You can put Kanchavada back with Asa, it's pretty cute, but otherwise it's such an horrible match, especially on blue. It's such a nightmare to play.
Yep. Okay, so do you guys have any questions about the mirror matchup?
I have one like extra note to the soldiers matchup.
Yep.
You usually want to Mandrake Calvi against soldiers because most of the decks do Ranka here.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Sure. So be it. Okay, and... Okay, so anything else?
I have nothing else. No. Or sometimes they run Triad of the Grocers, but that's easiest Mandrake of your life.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so that's it for the mirror. So guys, is there any other matchup that you would like to be discussed that we didn't mention? I assume not.
We went pretty much over everything except the memes.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Memes are kind of unpredictable.
yeah, and there's we didn't talk about X-Man, but X-Man is pretty, I wouldn't say easy, but it's pretty favorable for us.
Yeah.
Axemen and they cry.
Yeah, and you Mandrake, the silver one.
Yeah, and then you create weather clears because you are a good player, obviously.
Yep.
And that's about it. Yeah, create is fine.
We have one bot, but kill the bot. Yeah.
Okay, and
I feel that Alchemy is pretty unfavored in the X-Men matchup, played correctly. It's not about your X-Men at all. It's about gold weather.
Yeah.
well,
yeah, go ahead.
In engine matchups, you always try to, with Alchemy, you always try to not go for long rounds. You play for equally long rounds. So against X-Man, you preferably want to play an equally long round 1 and round 3 because X-Men will obviously pass round 2 if they win round 1, and they will also what do I want to say? Okay, so also you want to create weather clears with your silver cards, and when that fails, you want to put them back with Asaya and try again. And when that fails, you consider passing once you're unable to deal with the weathers. But the only good weathers, the storm weather is pretty bad here, because we can just ignore it with our minions. Don't mind the fact that we are going to have lower ale targets. We just ignore the fact that we only hit 2 units with ale. That's not important. As long as there are no units in the storm, that's very good for us. So the only problem are the golden weathers, where they put weather everywhere. Then you try to create answers, and when you fail to do that, and you keep and you can't really put back their axemen anymore, you can't kill them or anything, then you just pass. And then you hope that it wasn't too short of a round, and you hope they won't be able to make it back in round 3 with another golden weather and stuff. And when they do that, you lose. When you get nothing with create cards, you lose as well. That happens. But you know, you can't win everything. Okay, so that's about it for what I have to say.
Attitude you can't.
Sorry?
No, that attitude you can't.
Yeah, if you pay enough money to the RNGesus, then you could make it through, I guess.
Or if you tailbot. Also.
If you what?
If you tailbot.
You might also intimidate the Axeman player into conceding or something. Likely not going to happen.
Anyway. It's an uncommon match, so.
Yeah, you're right. Only 2% of the normal ladder is Axeman deck.
Yeah, 2.24.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so any other matchups we didn't cover but you guys would like us to cover?
No Rebel, no Relics.
I was tempted.
I mean, you do such a good job of explaining all the matchups in depth anyway. It's hard to really think of a question.
Alright, so do you have any questions regarding the alchemy deck in general then?
Hello.
I know that there's certain alchemy cards that should be run and some that shouldn't, but
Okay, we could talk about
the
question.
best ones, I guess, because it's like there's a lot of alchemy cards. So
Okay, we could talk about the variants of alchemy you could make. So,
there's not that much variant. The thing that can be changed if you put one Vikova medic instead of one slave driver.
No. Now you should be playing the general alchemy deck is 3 ointments, obviously, 3 Mahaka males, obviously in every deck, 3 Viper Witches, 3 Vikavara novices, and then the last 3 cards are the cards you usually might change. The normal version runs 2 slave drivers and 1 swallow. Some people. What?
Is that the normal lately? Because for me the normal is 3 slave driver. Maybe change.
Well, if you play 3 slave drivers and swallow, then you go to 26. Some people do that. Yep. But you can just cut 1 slave driver, and it will most often than not be fine. You might also just run Mardrodim. Mardrodim? Yeah, I think that's how it's called. Instead of swallow or 1 slave driver. But it's usually good to have at least 2 slave drivers in your deck.
Yeah.
And then with 1 swallow, 3 Mahaka males, and 3 ointments, you have 7 alchemy cards. So then you want to have at least 3 other alchemy cards in your silvers. You pretty much always want to have Mandrake, Dasbuk Runestone, and Blackblood. They just work, you know.
Yeah. Some people want expired aid, like can give you good value, but people like everyone's playing against it. The only way I could see it having good value is if you play the Wenfern and Joachim pack.
You could play Joachim into the 3rd row to make sure that Ale gets full value.
Yeah, this is the only way I could see Ale really working.
Okay, you could also I myself liked to experiment with Dragon's Dream when everyone was playing around Expired Ale. It was pretty good, honestly, but I will leave it up to you guys to experiment with Dragon's Dream. I can only say that it sometimes works.
I
mean,
wish Dragon's Dream had its ability from the event where it affected all rows. That was pretty cool because it made it really hard to avoid. But I think it would have been OP if they had done that, I guess, or they would have just made it a gold or something. I'm not sure.
The game would not be balanced if it affected all rows, pretty much.
Yeah.
It would have to.
That was really fun for the event.
It has 53.4% win rate, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, I believe it doesn't have high win rate because first, not very many people play it, and second, I believe many people play it wrong. So they just do some stupid stuff like play Dragon's Dream when in round 1, and after they play Dragon's Dream, opponent just passes, and you lose.
Yeah, you gotta play Dragon's Dream smartly. It's just one of those cards. I like when the opponent panics and uses a special card. I'm like, you right into my trap, because that's not gonna. That's just
The good stuff. The good point of playing Dragon's Dream is many people.
They think Weather Clear is gonna from First Light is gonna help, and no, that just sets it off.
Yeah, exactly.
If they had the bronze that does Weather Clear, then that's the only thing that disrupts Dragon's Dream.
Yeah, so you can play Dragon's Dream on normal ladder if you know what you're doing. That's what I can say. Expired Ale has high win rate in general. If you play Joachim in the same deck as Expired Ale, then you can make it work, in my opinion. But I recommend playing Blackblood, Runestone, and Mandrake. Runestone and Blackblood are really good because in many matchups they give you the extra options of creating weather removal out of thin air and disrupt enemy weather sometimes as well. So they are really good in the not that popular matchups. Mandrake is just really good in a lot of matchups and very often necessary in some. Joachim currently doesn't have such a very big win rate. I assume it's because Joachim is theoretically good, but you set up yourself for scorches with it. So so it can be bad against cancelled, especially.
Yeah.
And
you have to catch one gold. Like you have to catch a Truth or Kai or Vilgefort, which is not really optimal in my opinion.
Sure. And Asire is I believe you could call it a core. Roach is the card. You don't really have to play Roach. It's very popular on Pro Ladder, but I believe
it's either Roach or Joachim, but Joachim you play the fun package.
Okay, you certainly don't want to play Joachim and Roach in the same deck.
Yeah.
Because if you ever pull Joachim with Roach, Roach with Joachim, you will cry, and you don't want that. So for the stuff you need, I would say Cantarella, obviously, Mandrake, Runestone, Asire, Blackblood, and then you can put Roach, Joachim, or Expired Ale, or even Dragon's Dream. You could cut Asire. That's usually the meta call, but I would stick with it personally. Especially if you play Roach, then you should play Asire.
One question I have from Pika 500. When building Alchemy, what are the meta configuration when deciding on which card to include? So it's kind of linked to what we're saying now.
So Asire is... So let's think about it. Asire is decent card against Brewer, but Dragon's Dream is a much better card against Brewer, usually. Asire is not so great against Brewer, but it's really good against Skellige in general. It can also be really good against Consume. let me look at the ladder in general. Okay, against Hansel it can be alright as well. Asire is really good as opener for round 2 and round 3. When there is nothing for you to play, you can play Viper Witches on first turn. You also can play Ale, and there isn't much to play, but you can always play Asire and get the value out of it. So if, for example, okay, Brewer is very popular, but if Krach was dropping popularity like it is right now, then I might consider actually dropping Asire and Roach and just play different cards. But both variants are pretty, you could say, equal in efficiency. Are similarly efficient, I would say.
I think like Asire gives pretty good flexibility to the deck overall.
Yeah.
Because it gives you way to build a better win condition while being able to worsen like the opponent's win condition, even sometimes destroy it. Like they have a big great sword. First on 1/3, you put it back in the deck.
Exactly. Okay. Okay, and so that's the silvers. About the Madra pick, I would only pick it when the meta was having a lot of buff cards, because playing Madra just to buff your Calvate is, I would say, not really a good thing to do. So I would only pick Madrome in your deck if there were a lot of heavily buffing decks in the game. So, for example, Spelatel, Axeman, Arrakis Queen, so Consume, that kind of thing. But they are not really not really a thing right now. So Madrome is not very good right now, in my opinion. Next, so let's talk about golds. I would say you always want to play Vesemir and Vilgefortz.
Yeah, Vesemir is auto include.
Vilgefortz is very important in the mirrors, so I would also pick it.
Flexibility allows you to cycle your graveyard, has amazing tempo, because if you burn one card, like you play 8 plus the card he's putting, and you can control his pull by Kavit. Like you watch in your deck what's in your top is Kavit, and so you can know what you're gonna play with Vilgefortz thanks to that.
Yeah, exactly. Then I would personally recommend to play 3 Telekinesis, even though the win rate isn't the top tier right now. I'm not sure really why, but it's close anyway. Anyway, Triss is
58.
Yeah, Triss is really good. It sometimes gives you the flexibility of even playing your opponent's cards sometimes. Or it can be a negative thing, because then you can play your own cards with her. But in general,
she will always have an A. Like this is the worst case scenario, you're gonna A.
Yeah, and
yeah, it's still 18.
Yeah, she allows you to. She gives you an easy way to push tempo, pretty much, when you need it, especially in round 1, because you might not want to play Vilgefortz instantly in round 1, but you can always just play Triss and push for some tempo. Also, you can play Kahir. I think playing Kahir right now is fine, as long as it's not too popular, because if it's too popular, people will start spamming Mandrake on Calvate and breaking your Kahir.
Yeah.
And that will be terrible. But right now it's fine. Otherwise,
he's the flex spot. Like it's either him or Wenfern. Some people play Skellen. There's a C Dandelion Poets, but I don't really like him, to be honest.
Yeah,
like you don't really need the extra thinning, and you don't really like the other god also give you the extra tempo.
Yeah, because Stefan is a card that gives you. It doesn't give you raw power. Instead, it gives you how to call it?
Carryover. gives carry.
Yeah, it gives you carryover and also gives you.
It can strengthen your win condition. Like let's say you lost round 1, the opponent try pass round 2, you play just Stefan, so at the end, like on round 3, you just slam even more points. Can be pretty good.
Yeah, I wanted to say that Stefan gives you. Make sure that you get exactly what you want.
So more than carryover, it gives you, what you want.
Okay,
Don't
so
use that
it
for-
can be good, but it's going to be. I'm pretty sure it's not going to be great in mirrors.
Good point sent to Skellen as a proactive play.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. So if you're not running Asire in your deck, you might consider running Stefan just so you have a proactive opener.
Yeah.
Okay, and other than that, there is Dandelion Poet, but his win rate is not so great. So there was
I
a
just
point
don't
when
like
it was okay.
I think it's okay in tournament. So
What did you say? Sorry.
I think it's okay in the tournament situation
Yeah, I think you're correct.
because you don't want to risk like if they know exactly what you're playing and if they know you are tired, they are gonna like focus your cards with Mandrake, and then that I prevent that. That's why you wanna play it. But in that case, you can even play one fun. But
Yeah. Also, if you go for both Cantarella and Joachim, then you usually also play Reinfarn.
Yeah.
It also allows you to much more often get the Cantarella when you need it. So
yeah, true.
So if you would, let's say Hansel dominates the entire game and you just hate Hansel, then usually you want to play Rainfarn with Cantarella and Joachim just to get Cantarella more often. And also there's Trial of the Grasses. Trial of the Grasses is alright, and it can work. It only sucks against Scourge decks. But it can work if you have last play, but you can't guarantee that you have last say, and then it's going to be terrible.
Yeah, and just give a free Mandrake target. I don't really like it.
Yeah, it has the benefit of giving you additional alchemy card, but it can be countered, and when it gets countered, it feels really terrible. Like reset will be Mandrake will be higher actual value than you playing Trial of the Grasses.
Yeah, it's gonna give you 20, and the Wizard's gonna be 25.
Yeah, exactly.
Even 26 on Vesemir.
Yeah, true. Okay, so that's for the variants of the alchemy you could make. Do you guys have any more questions regarding alchemy? Nothing?
It's hard since you do such a good job of explaining it anyway. But
Thank you.
This is like Fika 500. It's not only related to alchemy, but Fika 500 is alchemy the only deck for consideration in a tournament setting? And I would say yes.
Well, the problem with other decks is that hand buff can be hard countered, and hand buff
can be hard, yeah.
and
Like,
hand
the
buff
hand can be hard
and hand buff
Yeah,
just is very predictable. You know exactly what your opponent is going to do pretty much when they play hand buff. Spies are dead. Feels bad, man. Soldiers, if your opponent knows you're playing soldiers and they actually play a deck that can counter them, you lost, and that's it, pretty much.
yeah, if we're just taking the Kavit mirror, if the alchemy players know he has soldier in front of him, it's gonna be easy win for him. And I also think alchemy allows you to have an answer to Greatsword if you know they're not playing White Border of the Sea. Allows you kinda an answer of against Anselt. and like you don't really feel Brewer because you can play anything else against Brewer, and also you can play it depending on the coin. Like if you're on a white coin, you can play another deck, and if you're on blue coin, you can play Carvit because Carvit doesn't really cares about the coin.
Yeah.
So it allows you some flexibility.
Okay,
And
so Santu
control
made made a good point and said that soldiers work in formats when only leaders are locked. So, for example, challenger qualifiers, where you could pick a leader and then pick any deck with it. So you could theoretically play soldiers with Calvate to surprise your opponent when they believe you're playing alchemy, but only really then when your opponent doesn't really know what deck you will play. Okay. And then there is reveal, and just don't play reveal in tournaments. Thank you. That's it.
Who does anyway?
Was there in the last half year even one guy who picked reveal for tournaments?
I mean, I'm sure in open we on like open challenge, so Spy when Spy was popular, and then alchemy, maybe in like less high-end tournaments, maybe like in Grand Slam qualifier or something, someone bring it, but
yeah, still.
Yeah, like even Freddy Beck didn't bring it, so I guess it's just stupid to play.
Yeah, just reveal can get counted. It's predictable most often than not.
And bad ones away.
And bad, yeah.
It's not good.
Okay, so any more questions regarding alchemy? Alright, so there are still more Nilfgaard decks, so obviously they are not the top tier that alchemy is, but they can still be fun and actually good on the normal ladder and sometimes on the pro ladder. So which deck would you guys want us to discuss next from Nilfgaard?
Is it possible to do soldiers first, because I'm not sure how much longer I can be here?
I was expecting that, but yeah, why not? I think it's like the second best Nilfgaard deck for two reasons. Like it's very good by itself. It's kind of hard to disturb because you have a lot and lot of engine, and the surprise factor. Like you never know. Like you think you're gonna play against alchemy, and you end up against soldier, and you surprise. People don't really know to play against it yet.
Yeah, the surprise factor is the main thing that carries the deck.
Yeah, it's like a tier 2 deck that gets carried but surprised, and people not knowing how to play against it.
Okay, so Santi, you're the experts on Nilfgaard soldiers. Would you give us a quick run over how do you play the deck in general?
Yeah, sure. I'll share a deck list in the companion so that people can see what cards I'm talking about. Just a second.
Okay, sure. Okay, so that's the deck.
So like that's the deck. I originally had like Orcs and Reamed are you can change them around. Orcs was mostly a meta call at the time when I did it, so Reamed is also a good option there. So the basic game plan is to, well, if you can, you bamboozle your opponent to pass and get a long round 3, and this deck wins long round 3 against any other popular deck except
Axeman
and Hensel. If he can kill other engines, also wins against you. But that's those are the two hardest matchups for the deck. So, if you aren't able to get into a long round, you mostly want to play. You want to start with the 8-point engines, the standard bearers.
Yeah, sure.
Unless you think they have removal, you can try to bait 1 or 2 removal first with the cavalries, and then you just play a couple of engines and start playing recruits and putting soldiers to the board, And the point gains are really strong with that, but the problem is that if you go into a mid-range round 3 with only one engine and not many soldiers, you can't do that much.
Okay.
That's why go on.
So do you always play golds during round 3, or do you mix them up in round 1 to make up for the low tempo you make with engines?
Yeah, it depends. Rainfarn is usually used earlier to get counter out and to thin more, because like the idea is that the deck thins to 0, so you should be able to play all your cards most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you usually want to keep as many sentries in hand as you want to, because the sentries gain value by having as much slave infantry on the board already, and you can't choose what you get from recruits, so you don't want to hit the sentries too early.
I see recruits as like the worst miseries. I like to compare the soldier deck to spy deck, only more brain dead.
It's a bit dire.
Do you sometimes mix do you always like play the engines first, the cavalry and the standard bearers, or do you sometimes mix them up, like play few standard bearers and then recruits for like tempo, or do you always play engines first? All the
Depends
engines?
little on the matchup, but most of the time you play at least 3 or 4 engines first, because if you can consolidate all of your slave infantry and sentries into the last round, it doesn't actually matter that much if you lost all your engines in the first round, if you can save all of your slave infantry and sentries.
I have a question about the Merlin gun, especially with the slave infantry and the recruits. And like this, I know you're gonna keep the most engine as possible, true. But how do you deal with slave infantry, the sentries, and the recruits?
You keep all recruits you can. You keep all sentries you can, except against Hensel, but I will talk about that later on. The Hensel matchup is completely different from the other ones. And you usually mulligan all slave infantry.
Okay, so you want to put the slave through the recruits as much as possible, right?
Yeah, like
Okay.
you play engines, then you play recruits to pull either more engines that you didn't have in your hand or slave infantry.
Okay, sure, thank you.
And
Go on.
and then you just play gold cards as needed to push for tempo or keep them for round 3, yeah?
Yeah.
Alright, I see. So the biggest advantage of the deck is that many people think you're alchemy and you try to bait them into a long round, and that's pretty much it. And other than that, you're you could say you are a poor man. It's a poor man's spy deck.
Kind of, yeah. But like, other than the dry passing, I mean, this worked for a short while very well on Pro Ladder, but then people learn to, like, if they don't know how to play against it, you can still make it work because they don't know how far they should bleed you. Like, if they bleed all engines but leave still all slave infantry for round 3, you are fine. But if they manage to bleed most engines and 1 or 2 sentries and slave infantry, but not all of them, then you are screwed.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. So do you guys have any questions about the deck? Nothing? Alright. So thank you, Santu, for the explanation. And okay, so we covered soldiers and alchemy, especially alchemy. Do you guys want? Sorry?
No, nothing.
Okay. Do you guys want us to discuss a specific other Nilfgaard deck?
Reveal.
Buff is pretty popular, but we have been here for what, over 2 hours now, so I don't want if you guys are like burnt out or tired, feel free to, we can like take a break and reconvene.
I'm alright. How about you?
I'm just starving because I didn't have a diner, but we survived. Don't worry about it.
Well, why don't
I don't know. I am
maybe
a
wanna
little
take
tired.
5 and go grab food?
No, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make my pasta when it's done. Don't show.
Did you guys cover mill by any chance?
Mill.
Does Mill
Uh,
even exist anymore?
Yeah, it's
Hell
there.
yeah.
Mill is
I know
kinda
there's
dead.
mill. There's a mill variant with Emmy, but it only works against super thin deck. And like if you're not stupid, you're gonna recognize it very early, so you're gonna stop pinning. Like I know it can work against Brewer since Brewer's thing to 0, but if you see that you stop playing reconnaissance, you stop playing like the heavy thinning stuff, and you should be totally fine.
Okay, so Mill auto loses against anything that doesn't go to 0, and then most decks that go to 0 can still counterplay the Mill part by not thinning, and then you're fucked.
And also going through because you're gonna win 1-1 most often because it's pretty much a non-tempo deck. The win condition is having 5 more cards, but there is no tempo whatsoever, and so non-mill deck's gonna be able to win 1-1, and it's gonna be able to draw in most cases. Like I know even if you play Great Swords, for example, and you have no more cards in your deck, and you only want 2 and you have your engines going, your engine's gonna be enough.
Hmm.
I don't think it's really useful to go around mill.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd say we go like through Amber, like Amos said, and then we go through reveal quickly.
People wanted us to talk about reveals. Maybe we'll talk about it first.
Okay, as you want.
Okay. Let me see. So, regarding reveal, I would say there are two variants of reveal right now. The first one is the classic one, which spams mangonels and fires champions and Darlan soldiers. And then there is the less popular one on the normal ladder, the hand buff version, which just plays quite similar to the M here version of hand buff, but doesn't play Mandrake on any of the units, just reveals a Knight or a Cantarella and plays 17-18 power spotters and 16 powers, what are they called? Magnet divisions with Vibrant Scale Shields. And, you know, playing 16 and 18 powers bronzes is actually pretty good on its own. You don't really need that much once you have that. Okay, so I will cover the hand buff version since I started talking about it. The idea compared to the regular hand buff version is that
you have more tempo 1-1 basically.
Yeah, you have more tempo because you don't need to just kind of kill your round kill your turn 1 and kill 2 or turn 2 by playing Knights just to return it. And instead you just play Morvan Voris instantly to pull all of your Imperial Golems, and you can just reveal one of your units instantly, so Nilfgaardian Knight or the Cantarella especially, and later you just play Spotters and Magnet Division Vibrant Scale Shields on the revealed unit, and you also keep one Venedal Elite in your deck, just so you can play it on Cantarella if you pick it. And it's just such a good play. Like 1-point Cantarella later on is... let's say you do it in round 1 and then you just play Cantarella in round 2. It's just going to be devastating.
It's good, but it's counterplay because you allow your opponent to have 12 plus 6, 18 Mandrake. So you have
they can still Mandrake it. You have to be careful with it, but... Yeah. It's still good when it works.
Yeah. True.
And on top of that, you can also play... because you play no removal whatsoever, you can also play Leto plus Regis for massive finisher, and you just kill the largest units on the enemy's board, and that's it. So it's a very straightforward deck, really. So the deck would look like 3 Imperial Golems, 3 Spotters, 1 or 2 Nilfgaardian Knights, 1 Venedal Elite, 3 Magnet Division, 3 Wyvern Scale Shields.
Reconnaissance then.
Yeah, you could also add the Reconnaissance,
Yeah.
and that,
They
and you
mostly
already
use
have 15
Reconnaissance and
cards.
Trace.
And then you have already 15 cards. And then
Yeah.
with your silvers, you obviously play Cantarilla. You can play Asaya, Roach, even Cynthia if you want. Actually, you can play a lot of free stuff on silvers.
Yeah, like Winstone. You
Because-
can play like Winstone Mandrake with Verzamate, study Dragon.
Well, you don't have to play
Arthur.
Mandrake anymore because you
You just can do it. It's not mandatory anymore.
there is not much reason really. You can
there's
just
not really silver that supports really the archetype.
yeah, so you just play whatever works best. You could also just play marching orders and ADC. That's pretty much what decks do when their silvers are bad.
Also, the last wish is played.
Yeah, because you can play Yennefer Enchantress into Last Wish.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the only reason. And then for silvers, you obviously will play. You could play Leto plus Regis. I mean goals. And you could also play Triss Telekinesis.
Yeah, if you play Reconnaissance, you put Trace into it. Leo, of course.
And you have Wyvern Scale Shoot. Yeah, for Triss.
When fun if you play Joachim.
You could even play Yennefer Enchantress with Last Wish. Or
Yeah.
Lel Bonhart. Well, there are options, you could say, but these are the few I would mention, especially. You could also just play Dandelion Poet if you want to.
Oh yeah, Poet's pretty good.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend Vilgefortz though, because you don't really play small units.
You have nothing, like you have no target for him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, let's say the Isha, Yen Enchantress plus Last Wish ADC is great indeed.
Yeah, and okay, so that's the Hound buff reveal, and then there's the standard reveal. I like to call it the wannabe Scourge Ifni deck. So you pretty
wanna be good deck since 1 year.
Come on, reveal was never good. That's just sad.
Never, because like it's reveal is basically the oh my god, it's tier 1 during the first 2 layers of every single patch that was released, and then 3 days after, no one's played it, and it's just bad because everyone realized it's bad. Basically, your plan is to try to put Mangonel in the board because Mangonel gives you very good value with Morvan and Valtier, but that's never gonna happen. Because people can pass on you, people can play Viper Witch on you, people can zap you, people can do stuff on you.
Yeah, pretty much every top tier deck, maybe other than Cancelled perhaps, has a way to instantly kill your Mangonels.
Oh, like Great Sword, they can just sponge them.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that actually, perhaps Great Swords is the only deck that should lose to this deck because you play, I don't know, 4 Scorchers or something. Or 3.
Yeah, but I see 30% win rate. So... I mean, like, this deck can truly win 1-1 against... Sorry, I'm... Okay. Like, this deck can really win 1-1 against a real engine deck, and then it's gonna just bleed 1-2. I mean, this deck has so much issues, it's not really working, and I wouldn't recommend playing it in high ranks. Because, okay, you're gonna have Mangonel and shit ton of tempo 1-1 with Golems, 31 Solios.
You could also just try to abandon the Mangonel entirely, and instead just focus on playing massive tempo with Morvan as soon as possible. I mean, the only real reason to play Reveal is the tempo spam in the first, like, 2-3 turns.
Yeah.
And when it doesn't work, the deck doesn't really have anything left. Other than Scorches.
This is the other issue of the deck. Like, this win condition is basically playing 2 or 3 Scorches. You play Scorch, then you play Yen Enchantment to Scorch. Some decks play Villain. Some decks play Lethal Wedges into Yen Enchantment, which is pretty decent.
Actually, Villain has a really good win rate on normal ladder.
Oh, it has such a bad one in Pro.
Well,
oh yeah, pretty good one in.
Villain's so good.
Villain's pretty good.
But sorry if this doesn't mind. I think Villain is a lot better in machines than like NR.
I agree. But like the thing is, like your win condition basically is based on what your opponent is doing. Because if your opponent is only playing small stuff or is playing Iron Scotch, you're not gonna have any great value whatsoever. Or he's gonna have better value, or just gonna raise the value. Like, okay, you Scotch a good sword, gonna raise it, whatever.
Yeah, so if I was trying to make a reveal deck work, I would just try to try to do exactly what the Brewer deck is doing. So spam massive amount of tempo on first 2-3 turns, and trying to make your opponent go 2 cuts down on you. And then just passing and trying to working with the card advantage you get, and just either trying to Leto Regis your opponent or just scorching him multiple times. Card advantage helps really a lot with both of the ways, and that's pretty much the only way I can see the deck working. Also, still Brickheav into Mangonel on red coin is really good anyway. Like, it's still 14 points, even if they kill Mangonel.
Yeah, true.
Okay. So
I mean, it's a pretty bad deck overall. I would not recommending it. I think it's pretty funny to play. It's pretty cute. But
it's fine on normal ladder.
Yeah, it's fine.
Below rank 20, I think it's fine.
Yeah, the higher you get, the tougher it's gonna be. Because the more and more people play Alchemy White, and the more people knows like things like 1-2 pass and stuff. Because let's say you play 3 McDonald, okay, I'm passing, see ya.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. So you pretty much always just play 1 Mangonel or 2, and yeah, usually 1 Mangonel and
You never
then
play
leader.
3. You just never play 3.
Yeah, you play 1 Mangonel and just leader, and then play
Yeah,
1
honestly,
more
one's
Mangonel after you leader.
One is fine because it's leader, so like golems and stuff plus 8. So it's pretty decent. 2 is plus 16, but it's pretty risky.
Well, Morvan with 3 golems and 1 more proc from your hand is 21 or 22 points already.
You can you can have some. If you don't really have the choice, you also have the fire scorpions. You can take 1 fire scorpion, second at 5.
Well, I would always try. I would recommend it. I would pick at least 1 or 2 fire scorpions in the deck.
Even 3, like, if you play alchemist, you can even play more fire scorpions.
Well, Derland soldiers are important though.
Yeah.
In the normal reveal. Okay, so any questions regarding reveal, guys? The handball version or the regular version?
I have a statement. Like it's in line with what you're saying earlier.
Yeah,
about playing one of those mangonels. That's one of the issues. A lot of players tend to use all their tempo really early.
Yeah.
And it's a crutch.
And like, okay, you're gonna be plus 30, but the opponent's gonna pass. And if you were on blue, you're gonna it's gonna be -1 anyway. So you've just wasted your tempo.
So you might consider just it's really difficult to delay your leader with reveal because there are just golems waiting in your deck and they are just bricking you. You might just consider playing even dry passing round 1 if you're on blue. If the matchup isn't terrible, if you dry pass, just so you can abuse your heavy tempo with that you get from your leader. Okay. So, do you guys want us to cover the Emhyr hand buff deck?
Do you know we just did that 20 minutes ago?
We didn't really cover it entirely.
Oh no, yeah, we have to cover it. Sorry. Yep, indeed.
Oh, a password.
I'm happy.
You mean a workshop when we discuss all the situations where you should pass instead?
I mean, we can do a more like game mechanics and game sense workshop, of course. Discussing about pass, for example, but also discussing about card advantage. Maybe matchup, not even that kind of stuff. Could be interesting.
Yeah.
But that could be quite messy. Yeah. I know, like another one later. When
Yeah,
we do
sure.
the factions.
Alright, so I know the workshop is going for like over 2 hours already, so do you guys want us to make a break, or do we finish now, or do you want to keep going and go for the final archetype hand buff Emhyr? Or do you want us to cover maybe some other archetype? And also, no, spies are dead, so no.
I would say going hand buff, because otherwise Hammer's gonna be mad and ban everyone.
Oh god.
Can we go over the relic?
Guys, yeah, as long as people are still wanting to hear more, feel free to go until you guys are, worn out or whatever.
Until we die.
And you'll just
Okay, I think it will be best if we cover the last, actually useful archetype. I mean, I don't think there are any more established archetypes other than what we talked about. Here.
It's monster.
Exactly.
And it's bad. It's very bad.
Implying that guardians aren't monsters.
Oh, damn it. It's not a low workshop anyway. Maybe next time.
The bad
Wish
decks
you could
workshop.
probably do that one.
Bad deck workshop led by Weber.
That
Okay.
would do it.
Okay, so let's talk about Emhyr hand buff and finish it for today.
She's
Okay.
like the least interactive and fun deck in the entire game. Let's be honest once again. But it's
Okay,
good.
the deck is actually good and actually brain dead.
Yeah. Like honestly, when you play that deck, you have to on 2 screens and put some Netflix show or a movie on another screen, or like a stream or something, because you're gonna die.
Okay, no, it's not so bad. I mean,
It's
Come
so
on.
boring. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. It's just boring as fuck.
okay, like, from one of the more, okay, judge. All right, let's do it the correct way. Let's talk about the general play, and then talk about the interesting things you can do. So, obviously, you play your Nilfgaardian Knight first, and you try to buff it with Mandrake and stuff, and then put it back, and then just use all your Wyvern Scale Shields and Spotters on it till your opponent dies or something.
Just the goal is to play Mandrake and like Mandraking the knight and putting it back into your deck in the same turn, so your opponent can't really react to that.
Okay, so
And it's gonna cost you a lot of tempo, but you don't really have the choice. And the
Okay,
best way
so-
to do that is to play just what?
okay, so there is also Peter Sar Gwynleaf. How is that how I read it?
Peter, yep.
Peter.
Okay, Peter. Let's just say Peter. So you might want to use Peter first and then use Mandrake, because then you have 21 points Knight and not 18 points. But you have to make sure first that your opponent doesn't run any way of denying you the Knight once you play one of your strengthened cards. Because
Even
okay,
Mandrake
imagine you're
or-
playing against Greatswords. You put Knight, they do something. You buff it with Gwynleaf, with Peter. Then they just play Coral, and you just wasted a turn on buffing the knight, then you have to find a workaround way to play another unit you can return, and it's just terrible. Okay, so only ever make one than more buff on the knight when you're absolutely sure your opponent doesn't have a way to instantly kill it, counter it, whatever.
Like if you're playing with veterans, or not, but like veterans who've used coral, because they lack any other control.
Yeah, so for example,
if you make them use coral, I think it's pretty fun because like
against
the next night,
against alchemy, I believe you could do that. I mean, the only thing they could do is Mandrake the knight after you play Peter, but then you can but then they won't be able to use the Mandrake on your powerful units. So it's a fair trade over. So it's a fair trade then, because Mandrake
consume true indeed, but like consume is so proactive. Like,
yeah, consume can't really
do anything.
Against consume. You can also just there's a one trick. For example, you could if you have Asire, Mandrake, and Vesemir in hand, you can use Mandrake on Knight, then Asire the Mandrake, then pull it again with Vesemir. Like, it's a super niche combo, and it will push you like on insanely low tempo. But you get huge units after that. And don't ever do it if you're not playing against consume, okay? That's just not going to work. So, yeah. Okay, so once you have your buffed unit, if they kill your knight, let's say they just keep killing your knights because if he can't play units on the board, then he won't win, right? Okay, so then you also have the Glorious Hunt, which puts a Manticore on your board when you're behind on points, and you should have at least 2 knights just to make sure you get at least one. Okay, so assume you did buff a unit and it's in your hand. Then you usually just spam units for massive tempo.
Just spam until the end of the game. You don't really have any other interaction whatsoever.
Yeah, you also play Reconnaissance. You can play Telekinesis for another shield or for Reconnaissance.
Yeah, Reconnaissance.
Yeah, also remember to you might want to play Asire to put Mandrake back into your deck later in the game, just to make sure that Brewer can't pull it back with Egglaze. That's a clever trick I've learned once, and so Asire is the playmaker. You can Runestone for Aaron Jesus. You can also double cross. You can have also double cross to make sure that you get your knights. I'm not sure if I would recommend playing Cantarella at all in this deck. You don't want to. I mean, this is a deck that just spams points. There is not much in it. I'm not sure if there's even a point in playing a spy in it.
I mean, you can because most people are gonna pass. At the moment, you're gonna be in need of playing Emmy into putting back the knock in your deck. Most people are gonna pass, so you're gonna win a lot of 1-1. Control is pretty good in that situation.
I mean, okay, so wait. You play a knight. Let's say you play a knight. They pass. Do you put it back?
No,
or do you
pass? You just win the round.
Yeah, you just pass.
Depend if you have another knight of knight you pass, but
okay, so once you get your knight back into your hand, you always go for the round 1. When do you not go for the round 1?
Yeah, when they pass on you, like sometimes what I do when I know like they're not gonna have enough tempo, if they play Emmy into putting it back into the end and I'm ahead, I'm passing. If I'm not ahead, I'm not gonna pass, of course, because it's gonna pass again on me. But if I'm ahead, I'm not gonna have they're gonna have to pay 2 cards.
I see. Okay, so you could play Cantarella if you find yourself getting a little, going ahead on a lot of points in round 1.
Yeah.
But other than
You
that,
have so much tempo, like she's pretty decent, like, but yeah, she's not gonna challenge. The big question is, what do you play instead of Cantarella? Because you don't have that much cards that support
Asire, Mandrake, Runestone, Peter,
Roach.
Glorious,
Yeah.
Hunt, Roach,
I like
Alzo's
Glorious,
Double
I know.
Cross.
I have a bit of a different
Yeah.
list that I've been running. It uses.
you can you can do other stuff. That's true. I agree with that.
Okay, and
Yeah,
Also,
my list was the
Concha-
Guardian
yeah.
instead
Oh,
of
that's
Glorious
smart,
Hunt.
yeah. I mean, Cantarella can also give you like a last resort target from both the shield and the spoilers.
yeah, but you never want. You can't even buff it. That's the first thing.
That's
And-
the issue.
Yeah.
But let's say
And-
you
and
don't
you-
have
and
the
you-
choice,
and
you
you-
can still be a target.
Yeah, so
The meta list already has 5 targets, so it's like
That's true. That's true. Do you really need it? I don't know. I don't play the deck myself. I find it way too boring.
I find it so exciting.
nice.
I mean, it's pretty good if you want to do something else on the side. I have to admit.
Okay. Do you have anything more to say about it, Kara?
Not really. Yeah, just try to use Leo smartly. Like against Red Sword, for example, wait for big Red Sword of a boat or something to play Leo. Because it's gonna be very high tempo.
Oh yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
that's-
Like you don't need to reveal your knight once it's back in your hand immediately. You can just play
Yeah,
shields
you can play
first,
shields.
and then just wait until you have something good to kill with Leo.
Oh, Santos saying something right. Cantarella had seen avoiding it double lat, say there's Insult and other decks like Aethness Coach, some of the Coach heavy deck like Reveal, but you're not gonna fix that much Reveal. Yeah, but that's a good point he makes.
All right. So that's it. Do you guys have any questions regarding the deck?
How well does it perform against relics?
It destroys them. It destroys
Yeah.
them.
Rabble, get out.
Like, okay,
It
you're pretty
obliterates
cute.
relics.
You are pretty cute with your 13 strengths dudes and then 17 strengths cool. But what is it against 23?
Relics are
Once.
cool, okay? Don't...
Just because they are old doesn't mean they are good, okay?
One day relics will actually be strong, and then Rabble will be able to
Still be
prove
bad.
told us all along.
Yes!
He will still be badly ranked in the ladder.
Okay.
I have faith.
So, do we have any questions regarding the Nilfgaards all around?
I have question against from Pika 500. One which is pretty interesting. How does Nilfgaard fit into a 4-ban in a ban 1 BO5 conquest lineup?
What does the Nilfgaard ban?
No, like, how does Nilfgaard fit into like a normal rule set, a grand competitive rule set?
Okay, so in a conquest variant, you always want to play alchemy, pretty much.
Yeah.
That's the first thing, and then alchemy. Alchemy is quite often banned by people if they are afraid of their engines getting completely destroyed. So, for example, they want to play greatswords but don't want to play wild boar in the deck. Then they might end up losing, banning alchemy, or if they just don't like the deck. I mean, it's just one of the few decks that focuses on countering, largely on countering enemy strategy instead of deploying its own.
I Alchemy can be used as a ban bait. Let's say you want your opponent to ban Alchemy, so you can rely on your engine decks and Cornabus decks like Anselt and Greatsword and Brewer, so you have access to all three.
Yeah, true. And okay, so Alchemy, the worst matchup of Alchemy is pretty much Brewer, I believe, from the decks that are actually played.
And in some extent, Consume.
Yeah, Consume can also be bad.
And Dagon, like Consume Dagon, but Dagon is not that common anymore.
Dagon depends. I would say that Dagon depends. If
It's
you're lucky with
very
Mandrake.
It's a very skill-heavy matchup, and you're not don't expect to win that matchup every time.
Yeah, and it's bad against Greatswords only if they actually play Wild Boar, I believe.
Mm-hmm. But Wild Boar is getting more and more popular.
Yeah, against Wild Boar you could also just insta-pass, but it's going to be fucking terrible if they actually go super deep round 2.
I mean, some people do. I experienced that a bit since I'm playing quite a lot of Greatsword. When I play, I'm on blue, I played Bow instantly, of course, and they pass. So that can be a solution.
Yeah, but if they play both and you insta-pass, then they are free to go for as long round 2 as they want, and at some point you will run out of. I mean, if they go super deep, let's say you just keep killing Greatswords, you kill 3 with Viper Witches, best case scenario, they just resurrect them over and over. You run out of Viper Witches and they just keep playing. And
it's gonna be
and you lose because you have no ointment targets. So assuming that they don't have bricked hand, because they only have units to resurrect, you are most likely going to lose this.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on your hand. If you know you're not gonna have bricked ointment next turn, Greatsword player might have some bricks. Let's say you don't kill a bot and he has to Jimin Korsen in your hand. He might have a brick. Restore might have a brick Vesemir, but you need luck for that. So that can be an option, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend it either, or I need some testing on that. But some people does it.
I really I mean, I myself end up 2-rounding Alchemy a lot, even if they don't insta-pass on me in round 1, so I think it won't work.
Yeah, but even if they have more bricks, if you get your engine going, you can at least go +1 in 1-3. And +1 with, let's say, 18-20-ish Greatsword is win. It's GGD and CU.
Okay.
So you don't even need to choose. If you can choose one, because if you play your engine, it will be fine anyway.
Okay. Santu is writing something.
You can Asaya the Greater. That's true. But yeah, that's a good point. But the thing is, since we lost 1-1, we're gonna first play on 1-3. So we're gonna be able to play the big Greatsword first.
The problem is you might not live to round 3 if they don't have a bricked hand.
Yeah.
So
that's risky.
It's just if they don't have a terrible hand, and by terrible I mean insanely bricked to the point where they really can't make it work, then you are pretty much guaranteed to lose.
Yeah, even with 1 brick, they can still chew on them.
Yeah, you will have bricks anyway, also with ointments.
Yep.
And Kahir, if you play him. Yeah, so Wild Boar, Cantus, Alchemy, that's it.
Yeah, hard contest Alchemy.
Okay, so other than that, do we have other questions about Nilfgaard? Oh, Santo, and if you get a ship with Slave Driver for a long round, oh, you mean you can kill units with Slave Driver and then with ship, then I see what you're doing. What you mean?
Oh yeah, you can.
Yeah, you
cycle
can
with,
kill
yeah.
you can kill
That's-
like slave drivers and.
The slave driver might bricks. You never know.
Yep. Also, the terrible part of the matchup is the fact that sometimes slave drivers just brick.
That feels bad.
Yeah, it's just pure RNG. You might because they play a lot of
Right.
units that resurrect other units or pull other units, and if you get all of them with slave driver, oh, that's you just played a 4-power slave driver.
Great is fine, guys.
Yeah, create is fine. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Well, I mean, nothing changed, right? Okay, any more questions regarding Nilfgaard?
Greatish faction, guys. No RNG involved in.
I think this was great. Good job.
Oh, thank you, Amos.
You don't get banned this week.
Yay!
You get to
That's-
live another week.
That's what I was hoping for. Alright, so since no one
I
seems
like
to...
listening to what sounds like birds in the background.
Yeah, these are pirates.
They're,
I mean, that was good.
I
That
grew
was.
up with parakeets, and so it's very nostalgic for me just hearing the twittering in the background.
I see.
That wasn't even disturbing. That was giving us a small background noise, like enjoyable one.
Great. Everyone will be able to enjoy it on YouTube as well.
Yay!
And can you send me the audio file of it as well? I'm gonna start uploading. I have 2 from the last 2, and then this one that I'd like to put up on a Lodge YouTube that I made.
Okay, I will upload this as well. I will just send you
Thank you.
as well. Okay. So no one seems to be having more questions, so I think the session for today is over.